Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all-new special event brought to you by Sim Racing Magazine on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, after the dust has settled from Season 7 of our GT4 challenge and with only 2 weeks to go until the 8th season gets underway, what better way to bridge the gap and build up an appetite for plenty more GT4 racing action than a special event here at SRM. However, this is not just going to be a special event dedicated to GT4s, there are going to be plenty of GT4s out on the circuit, we promise you that. We haven't forgotten about our much-loved machines, but we've decided to pay tribute to the upcoming 12 Hours of Sebring, the annual endurance event hosted at the Floridian circuit in the US of A circuit which is widely regarded as the precursor to the 24 Hours of Le Mans each and every year. This circuit in itself has plenty of history, and we'll tell you a little bit about that shortly, but the one thing that's so critical about this circuit is that it's arguably the ultimate test of driver and machine endurance. A circuit which has plenty of road surface transitions going from smooth asphalt all the way to rough and rugged concrete in honour of what is its origins as being the site of a former military airfield, where the old concrete slabs of the runways are still there, and it means driver and machine will be shaken and stirred to victory, and indeed if they don't quite hold together for too long, they'll quickly find about it when they see the suspension components start to fall apart. But we should not see any of that today, and as we play tribute to multiclass racing, well, what exactly have we married together? In real life, you would see the marrying together of GT3s and prototypes and LMP2s. We haven't quite got the appetite for that. And indeed, keeping with our GT4s, we've decided to pair our GT4s with none other than the Porsche 992.2 GT3 Cup car, brand new onto the iRacing simulator for 2026, arriving in the most recent 2026 Season 1 build. And what a brilliant car it is. And indeed, the staple of the German one-mate machine series, which has been making its way around the globe for the best part of the last couple of decades, where it is going to be at the forefront of Porsche Supercup and also Porsche Carrera Cup around the globe for this year. And what better way to bring about that car and celebrate its arrival in the real world than marry it here to our much loved GT4s and bring you this special event. But why exactly is it the 180 kilometres of Sebring? Well, we're going to be seeing our drivers take on 30 laps around here, and when you do the mileage of this circuit to the best part of 3.74 miles or 6.21 kilometres depending on your preference of unit, it adds up to approximately what will be 180 kilometres racing there. Indeed, for the mathematically astute, you can check the numbers and confirm, but what it does mean, of course, is that this is going to be a plentiful opportunity for our drivers to go battling not just with their class peers, but also deal with the finest of multi-class racing action. But where exactly are my manners? I haven't welcomed you to this live broadcast on the circuit side, have I? And welcome to you all tuning in tonight on YouTube at the one and only place you can catch all this racing action, and that is on youtube.com, and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be catching it all there. And don't be shy, feel free to say hi if you are tuning in today and you have access to the YouTube chat, because we're always happy to see you here. And we don't bite. The only biting you're going to see will be biting of brakes, although anti-lock braking systems, there are ABS systems, should stop our drivers' brakes from fully locking up. In the content brief, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I'll bring you all your racing action as it unfolds today. And indeed, we look forward to plenty of brilliant battling. But in terms of our schedule, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, we can see in approximately what will be about 12 minutes time, we'll make our way into our qualifying session, 15 minutes in duration, or drivers out on circuit looking to give their all. And after that, we'll be taking a brief 5-minute breather, or at least our drivers will be, and then we'll be making our way to the grid for our 30-lap feature race, due to get underway at approximately 25 to 9 this evening. But as we get set and ready to go, well, let's give you a little bit more background on the event, what you can expect, the rules and regulations, and everything in between. So, without further ado, let's not tarry, shall we? So let's start off by talking about our host circuit. It's the Sebring International Raceway Circuit. Indeed, it's full layout, known as the International Layout, because there are 3 layouts to this circuit, while drivers will be taking it on, and it's located, of course, near the city of Sebring in the Highlands County of the US state of Florida. Now, 17 corners, as we can see on the track map here, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. But in terms of what you need to know about this circuit, well, a 2-dimensional image is perfect, because there's very little or no elevation of change at all here at the circuit, and it owes that to its historical origins as being the site of the former Hendricks Army Air Base, which originated in the Second World War. Once a storing point for American bombers, particularly B-17s, as they made the way across what would be the Atlantic to the United Kingdom, and then go on to serve in operations in what would be the European theatre. But this is where American aircrews were trained, and they made their way all the way in their bomber flights over to the United Kingdom. But indeed, this is still a circuit today that shares a purpose, and that purpose is with Sebring Domestic Airport, Airport, whereby just southwest of the circuit, and I mean literally southwest, because the southwest, well, not southwest, I should say, southeast, let me get my compass correct, exactly southeast, going off a Le Mans corner at turns 15 and 16, you only have to travel the best part of 500 metres, and you will be in the domestic airport. Indeed, the runways of domestic airport run right alongside this circuit, and that one is a very unique one in the fact that it continues to honour its historical traditions even to this very day. But as our drivers take it on, they'll roar the way down the start-finish straight and in towards Jindabyne corner at turn 1, named after the infamous racing driver who put on an absolutely stellar performance in one of the very early endurance races hosted at this circuit. As they make the way out to turn 1, they'll find themselves going from concrete to asphalt as they make the way in towards turns 2 and 3. Hard on the brakes, they'll go in towards the tight left-hander and going through the sweeping complex to turns 4 and 5, which is all going to be about the late apex of turn 5 as the road has narrowed up, and then it'll quickly expand as they come out of left-hander and in towards Big Bend corner. Through the long right-hander at turn 6 and into that heavy braking zone at turn 7 they'll go, aptly named hairpin because it is one, and as they come out of there, making sure not to disrespect the kinks and the track limits, they'll then make the way through the sweeper of Fangio turns 8 and 9, named after none other than the legend of Manuel Fangio, and they'll head in towards Cunningham at turn 10. There's a sharp right-hand, right-angle corner. Hard on the brakes they'll go, but there's many ways to come out of turn number 10, particularly when you're battling too wide and heading through Collier Bend at turn number 11. Then into the kink of the 12, it'll be onto the brakes nice and early for Tower Bend, and as they make the way out of another right-angled right-hand corner, they'll then come all the way down on asphalt and return to concrete as they make the way into Bishop. Through the kink of 14 and then in towards the Le Mans complex to turns 15 and 16, this is where they'll feel those transitions, those concrete slabs at most, and as they come out of Le Mans Bend, it'll then be down the Ullman Straight, the final long stretch before they get to the trickiest corner on the circuit, Sunset Bend. Named after the fact that when the sun does set, drivers will be looking directly into the sunset, and the Floridian skies look beautiful on a summer's day, but they're not beautiful when you do have the sun in your way. But get it right through that long sweeping right-hander where you've got to brake as late as humanly possible, and then you'll be making your way to the start-finish line to complete the lap, or at the very end, but actually see that checker flag and take victory. And that's what our drivers will all be looking to achieve here today. Now, in terms of our rules for this one-off event, we have to have rules, otherwise we're not allowed to go racing. In terms of setup, both classes, both GT4 and Porsche Cup, are running a fixed setup as provided by the Sim Racing Magazine administration, and our drivers have had access to this setup for a little bit of time, so therefore they've been able to put in plenty of practice. Qualifying wise, we will see a closed qualifying format be used. So what does this mean for the uninitiated? Well, what it means is all of our drivers will essentially be on an isolated instance of the circuit whereby they have nobody else around them, they all have exactly the same conditions, and they do have the 15 minutes to try and put the best possible lap they can together. And they have overtime as well. If they're on a lap, when the clock strikes 0, they can finish their current lap as we are to understand it. So there's no expectation of slipstream. There can be no teamwork between drivers. They all have to do it of their own volition. It really will be a qualifying session about who gets the job done best. And after that, when we do go racing, well, firstly, the race shall commence via a double file rolling start as a tradition of events here at Sim Racing Magazine, and the Porsche Cup class will be starting ahead of the GT4 class. So this means essentially we will be breaking the field up into its two classes. All the Porsche Cup machines will start together as their grid block, and then we will see the GT4s behind them. And the leader of each class may only start the race within a designated start zone. That start zone is going on to the start-finish straight. It is beyond what is the walkover or the flyover crossover where pedestrians can walk from one side of the circuit to the other, and we'll show you that when we do go back to circuit side. That means the Porsche Cup class will start approximately what will be somewhere in the region of about 5 to 10 seconds ahead of the GT4s, and the GT4 class, even when they get told the Porsche Cup cars have gone and they hear the announcement over iRacing green, 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 they are not allowed to go until the leader gets that start zone and the leader chooses when to put their foot down. Each driver has one fast pair available should they need it during the race, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points, get to 20, and they may just be disqualified. Meanwhile, all race tuning shall be conducted post-race. Now, we should point out there is no mandatory pit stop requirement here, but that does not rule out the need to come into the pits for fuel or perhaps changing tyres, but that will be entirely at the discretion of our drivers here. Indeed, we kept it as free-flying as possible, and we look forward to seeing what strategies our drivers do come up with. That's enough rules, regulation, a bit of scene setting for you, so let's make our way back to circuit side. And as we do, well, things are just a little bit quiet at the moment because, understandably, all of our drivers are in the pit lane now. They're being read the rights and the rules by our driver's briefing administrator of none other than Andy Marsden, who's also participating today, and you will see him in the GT4 class. He's parked up there at the moment, but as they all do sit there, all of our drivers right now very patiently sat there and will be told everything they need to know. Now, in terms of what you need to know about this event. Is there anything on the line? Is there any money? Are there any prizes up for grabs? Well, there's no money. There's no free entry necessarily to our next season, the GT4 Challenge, which we'll tell you a little bit more about at the end of today's broadcast. But what we can tell you is that there are medals up for grabs for our podium finishers in both of the classes. So the top three in Porsche Cup, they will be receiving medals in honour of the event, and so will our GT4 drivers. We also do have some overall prizes up for grabs, and that will be for the move of the race, which will be submitted by our drivers. They will submit contenders, and then the administration team at Sim Racing Magazine will pick one, and that will be the move of the race selected. And also we will have a medal for the safest driver award, and that will be based on the driver who picked up the least number of incidents over each lap. In other words, you could say the least number of incidents on average per lap in this race. And when we do have 30 laps on the schedule, at least for what will be our leading class of the Porsche Cup cars, well, understandably there are plenty of laps to get things right, and there are plenty of laps to get things wrong. But as everyone does sit there right now, all eager to go, let's talk a little bit about what is the times of our drivers, shall we? As we do see our standings on the left-hand side there. Now, we do have a grand total of 32 participants here today, which is great to see. So many wanting to be on the grid here. And, well, right now it does seem as though the fastest in Porsche Cup, John Bailiff. Very quick there for Win It or Bin It race. And, of course, one of your big contenders, and in the end, your AM champion for what was the GT4 Challenge Season 7. Absolutely delivering, no doubt about it. But he decided to exchange his regular for GT4 machinery for a Porsche Cup car today. However, Stuart Bickley's not too far behind, nor is Chris Jennings. Meanwhile, in the GT4 class, well, one name definitely stands at the very top of the tower. Here he is right now. He's back out on circuit. He's decided he wants to go back out now that the driver's briefing has been completed. It is none other than Alex Gall with a 2-minute 10.139. And, well, the best part there of only 200ths faster than Stuart Reynolds. And, well, of course, we do have the regular names going toe-to-toe. And, well, Stuart Reynolds, of course, parked up in the pit lane there for Fury Simsport. Many of you remember him because he was your overall drivers champion for Season 7 of the GT4 Challenge. And, well, brilliant championship battle between himself and Alex Gall. Unfortunately, Alex Gall not quite able to complete the season as strong as he started it, and also did miss that season finale. So, therefore, it meant that Stuart Reynolds, not quite by default, he still had to pick up some points, but it was almost as if it were by default he would take that crown. But then again, it should never take away the fact that he did earn it the hard way and had to take on Alex Gall in multiple rounds, and in the end got the upper hand right when it mattered most at the Nürburgring that season. But as Reynolds makes his way out the pit lane, and all our drivers now getting themselves set, they've all been told you're allowed to go back out there if you so desire. Well, making their way on around right now, we do look to our other drivers further on down. Simon Clifton here. And he's going to be very happy today, representing Axis Simsports. And, well, we do have several teams here. Now, keep in mind that we are permitted to have teams on the grid. You are allowed to have multiple drivers on the same team. However, there are no teams points or anything like that today. So it really is a fun event where everyone is expected to have fun as a driver and, indeed, race respectfully, race fairly, but know that you are racing to be the best of the best here today. Indeed, there are no prizes on the line for being the best team out there, even if you do go 1, 2, 3 in a particular class. But as all these drivers continue on around, what can else we tell with regards to the Porsche Cup car versus the GT4? Well, the intrigue is the time delta between these cars. Now, over the lap, you will see on average there is a delta in the lap time of approximately 8 to 10 seconds between car to car. Where that time is made up, however, is where the real intrigue comes. Now, this Porsche Cup car, of course, powered by what is none other than a 6-cylinder 4-litre flat 6, the regular engine that you would see in any Porsche Cup car, and it's been a mainstay of the car now for the best part of almost 2 decades, as we do see Guy Edwards there going for a spin, and we'll come on to why he had that spin only moments later. Well, this car right now pushing out the best part of 520 brake horsepower over those rear wheels. Of course, it's rear engine, rear wheel drive. Conversely, our GT4s, of which we do have Daniel Perry in one such car, in the 232 right now, the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4, quite poetic, we'd focus on Porsches, and as he makes his way in towards turn 1, well, these GT4 machines, these are packing in the region of 400 to 450 brake horsepower by comparison. So there is an average gap of around 80 to 100 horsepower between our GT4s and our Porsche machines, so that naturally creates a bit of a difference. But also what you do find is that the Porsche Cup car, given its cornering capabilities with that rear axle, and we do have, of course, no equivalent in our GT4 class. You have mid-engine rear-wheel drive, of which you do have the Porsche, plus also the McLaren as 2 fine examples. And, well, as our drivers carry on, well, the thing about these GT4s, of course, is they don't quite have as much performance in the corners, perhaps. And that is where the lap time is gradually made up. Although they are very close to the Porsche Cup cars in the corners, it should be said, and it's more in those acceleration zones and the straights where you'll see the more notable differences. And that's why we do have several long sections of this circuit where you'll really be able to see the 2 classes dissipate. And more in the early stages, of course, it will be class versus classmate action. But as we go deeper into the race, and I suspect by the time we get about a third of the way into the race, you'll start to see significant overlap between the two classes, and that's when the multi-class aspect really starts to come alive. Add to that as well the expectation that there is going to be at least one pit stop for fuel at some point, and therefore we could really see a mixing of things up. And remember, multi-class racing, as much as you could be the quickest driver out there, you could be an Alex Gall right now, but if you're not able to decipher the key to making your way between your rivals and those of the other class, and making sure you lose as little time as possible with those of the other class, and you maximize your time in the lead of your given class, you could be losing out. Being the fastest over a single lap is not necessarily the way to victory in multi-class racing. It's about being the smartest, the most consistent, and then the fastest. But as Alex Gall there continues to be the fastest in GT4 right now, well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, time has ticked away just as quick as that, and with only 5 seconds left on the clock, you know what time it is. It is time for us to make our way into qualifying. 15 minutes, who shall put it on pole? Let's find out. And so qualifying begins to tick away. 15 minutes begins to count down, and I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it may sound like a long time, but it will very quickly become 0. But as Thomas Few jumps into his car there, making his way down the pit lane for the Axis SimSport team, well, what exactly can we expect in qualifying? Beyond the obvious, the Porsche Cup cars will be faster than the GT4s. Well, firstly, what we can expect here is that qualifying is going to be quite significant. You do want to qualify well here at Sebring. Whilst overtaking is highly possible, the problem is that overtaking is incredibly challenging around here, and the reason for that is, simply put, is whilst you've got a lot of circuit width, you also do have several quick-fire direction changes. Add it all together, and what it does subsequently mean is that if you attack up the inside into one corner, you can find yourself being vulnerable on the outside of the next, and vice versa. But also, naturally, you do lose a lot of time fighting, particularly as you come down towards the hairpin, the turn number 7 here, through Big Bend, and then into that heavy braking zone. Going side by side through here can cost you the best part of half a second by default, and that is half a second the guys up the road can then use their advantage. So therefore, putting yourself towards the front of the field is definitely going to be invaluable. As we do say hello there to Simon Bird, who says, go on, Mr. Mayor. Now, of course, we do have 2 members of the Mayor family here today. We do have your regular, you've seen him on the grid in our previous season of the GT4 Challenge, none other than Heinz Mayer, and he's running in the Ford Mustang GT4 today. And if you're wondering, why is he not in his regular Oris Racing livery that we've come to expect and absolutely love for the Oris Racing team? Of course, they had 2 teams on the season, oh, sorry, on the grid last season, I should say, as I mince my words there, but let me not mince this. Well, we're not going to be seeing a yellow or red livery for him. Indeed, he's running a livery in tribute to a project he's been working on recently, and I do believe is almost getting ready to be unveiled onto the world. And well, that project is none other than Rome Worthy, one of our partners for this special event today, and we'll tell you a little bit more about Rome Worthy right at the end of today's broadcast. But what's lovely about this livery, which he's worked on very hard in the last couple of days, is the fact he's actually integrated the coloration and also the symbology of the Rome Worthy project he's been working on into the car, so much so you can't quite see at the moment this camera angle, but if you look to where the grille would be, or the outlets would be on the bonnet of that Ford Mustang, he's actually been able to overlay the Rome Worthy branding over the different parts of what is the bonnet outlet, essentially, or the vent, and therefore when you look at it at the right angle, it suddenly all comes together to create the logo across 3 pieces of the car's material. It's a really clever design that Heinz has been able to put together there, and as he makes his way across that timeline, now he's got to try and be clever and put it all together here in qualifying as he goes onto his first flying lap. And he was telling me of the fact that he's been finding this Ford Mustang a little bit of a pig to drive, albeit in terms of making sure it stays settled down there. And these GT4 machines are no joke. They're 80% road car, 20% race car, but the understanding is, of course, they're quite light, but also when they do shift around, when you're looking at the best part of what is about 1.3 tons of machinery to 1.2, depending on the car, the Mustang being on the heavier side, more towards 1.4 tons if my memory serves me correctly. Well, these cars right now, they really will swing around. But we haven't just got one member of the Mayer family on the grid today. We've also got on the grid Ralph Mayer for Oris Racing as he makes his way down the pit lane. And just towed back to the pit, and he's the older brother of Heinz, I've been informed. I didn't drop a message to Heinz literally 5 minutes before this broadcast was due to start to say, hold on a second, you both related by chance? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I actually did, in fact, because it was too much of a coincidence not to ask Heinz. And well, he's a wonderful gentleman, Heinz. He's always got 5 minutes for everyone, as that's a bit of a mistake there for Ralph Mayer. And that's what happens when you touch the grass at turn number 2, immediately toast the pits there. Easy mistake to make, to be fair to him. But we've been talking quite a bit about our GT4 drivers there of the Mayers, and let's take a look at Paul Goffin here as as he makes his way around for Sim Racing Magazine, and more in the Porsche Cup car here. Now, we do have a few drivers, of course, from one of our friendly communities, none other than PCGB, or I do believe that's Porsche Carrera Great Britain, or Porsche Club Great Britain. And, well, very happy to have a number of members from them on the grid today, and big thank you to them for being part of this wonderful event, as we do see Paul Goffin making his way on down what is the back straight here of Auburn. As he does so, well, we do look to Simon Povey. He's also in the Porsche Cup car, and, well, this Porsche Cup car, of course, very popular on iRacing. And what's the big change between this and its predecessor, the 992.1? The main change is the introduction of the electronic systems. Now, for those unaware, in 2026, in the real world of motorsport, because iRacing models the Porsche Cup car based on the Porsche Supercup regulations and the Porsche Carrera Cup regulations, we have seen the switching on of ABS, anti-lock braking systems, and also traction control systems, or TCS. So that means now that these cars previously had no electronics active on them, so if you locked up the brakes, you locked up the brakes and you went straight on at a corner, and also trying to get the power down, you had nothing but your own right foot to hold the traction. Well, now, these cars do have all of that, and it is a real change the dynamic of the machine. Now, some would say, has this made the car easier to drive? Yes and no. It's made it easier for gentleman drivers to pick the car up. That is a saying given to those who may not have started off their career in motorsport as of a very young age, starting with karting, for example, or what might be racing saloons in their teens at a domestic level, but instead have gone into the world of work outside of motorsport, and then through the money they've made in an alternative career, they've then come along and essentially made their way into motorsport. They've bought their way into a degree in terms of buying the car and buying the team. Not to say, to be fair, that they have no right to do so. And the idea being, for those gentleman racers, having those electronics gives a greater level of confidence and makes the market more accessible for potential gentleman drivers to drive these cars. Whereas previously, with the absence of TCS and also ABS, it was seen as a bit of a blocker to be able to get those individuals in. And, well, it's definitely potentially going to bolster the Porsche Cup grids in the real world as of this year onwards. And it's done that in iRacing as well. It's definitely made this car a lot more approachable. That's the main difference. The other difference, of course, is an extra 10 horsepower from the engine. Plus, also, we have had a slight refinement to the aerodynamics, particularly around the front of the car, where the aerodynamic trim has been slightly improved, so these cars can run even closer together behind one another. And also we have seen the retention of that very large rear wing. In fact, I think it has been slightly expanded. But Simon Povey makes his way in towards turn number 16 through Le Mans Bend. Well, we're almost at the halfway point of this qualifying session. Very soon we will be bringing you an on-board lap or two with our drivers from one of each of the classes. And in fact, I do believe we're going to be able to get an on-board lap with Satellite Racing's Ben Idris Abdullahi as he makes his way out to the final corner, and onwards he goes, ladies and gentlemen, to a flying lap. To bring the car over to the right-hand side end for Genderby and Bend. He looks over to his right-hand side. He'll look for his marker, albeit it's more muscle memory here, as he dabs the brakes, drops down to fourth gear, chucks the car in, and now returns to throttle. An apex speed of 97 miles an hour, and now heading onto the asphalt in towards turns 2 and 3. Hard on the brakes there at the 150-metre cone, and coming all the way down to second gear through the left and now into the right-hander. We're going onto the brakes once again. From third, back down to second. Taking his time with this one, you've got to trowel off, and now coming in towards Big Bend. Here it's flat out all the way up to fourth gear, and very shortly heading in towards fifth. Will he get to sixth in time? We will see, as he now lets the car roll gradually over to the left-hand side. This is to open up the braking zone, as he makes one to the brakes there. 150 metres of corner apex all the way down to first gear. Take plenty of the apex curve, and now flat out straight line between the two exit curbs, so that way you shorten the run through Fangio. And as he now powers his way all the way through turns 8 and 9, flat out as he goes, he'll get very ready shortly to make his way in towards turn number 10. Hard on the brakes here into Cunningham Bend, braking at about 130 metres from corner apex down to second gear, and now in towards Collier. The sweep in left-hander at turn number 11 keeps it tight this time. A tight line there can lead to some oversteer with a lot more fuel in the car, but he now makes his way onto the brakes for turn number 13, braking at the apex of 12. Going through that right-hander in second gear, and you can see the car bouncing around there with the suspension and with the curves, but as he now heads up towards Bishop, so we're flat out here onto the final section of the circuit. Back onto the concrete he goes, and now coming onto the brakes here for turn number 15 into Le Mans, down to third gear. Keep it nice and tight initially, and now bring it over to left in order to open up Le Mans Bend as much as possible. You want to go as wide as you possibly can, and now on exit, does he keep all four wheels on the road? Yes, he does. You're allowed to run all the way onto that exit curve so long as you do not touch the grass, and as he makes his way down the Allman Straight, there's been a lovely lap so far from Ben Idris Abdullahi. It's been personal best every step of the way, and now into Sunset Bend he goes. There's the cones to tell you the corner's coming up, but you brake well after, and you brake at the final cone then, the Porsche Cup car, 50 metres on the entry point if you will, and at an apex of 82 miles an hour, he now makes one out there, bouncing over the concrete seams and heading down towards that timeline. And what's it going to be for the Satellite Racing driver? He was fourth, and it moves into third. A lovely lap there, a 2:01.209, and well now splitted himself between John Bailiff and Guy Edwards. And what a lap that was in the Porsche Cup car there. Thank you to Ben for that. And we look forward to plenty more for him when we do go racing. But that was an onboard lap with your Porsche Cup car. And you definitely got to see the car bouncing around, not just on the curves, but also on those road surface transitions when it went onto the concrete of the old runway. And, well, the theme of that concrete, of course, as we mentioned earlier, in a tribute to the Hendricks Army Air Base on which this circuit is situated. And those concrete slabs have been there since the circuit's inception in December of 1950. Indeed, those are the original slabs and seams from the military airfield itself. But as Idris Abdullahi makes his way on around right now, he won't be thinking about that. He'll be thinking about trying to get things absolutely right. And as we look from one satellite racer machine to another of Neil's core, he's in the Ford Mustang GT4, the new GT4 entry as of 2025. Of course, Ford taking a step away from GT4 racing for a bit of time, but now back to full fruition. And we're very happy to have them back on the grid once again in real world, running in the all-new Generation 9 Mustang, if my memory serves me correctly. But an interesting car, this one, because if you take the front and take the rear away, it actually is the same as the Generation 8 car in the middle section. It is purely at the front and at the very rear where they've changed the car for the most part, at least in the road car. But the race car has seen some further improvements, particularly to its Coyote engine. But as Core makes way around, he won't be thinking too much about those, other than hoping the 5-litre V8 continues to push him on very nicely. But in terms of who else is looking good out there in GT4, well, Alex Gold's right on pole at the moment, and Stuart Reynolds in his Mercedes AMG GT4, a stalwart to the GT4 grid since 2017, this car. And as he comes onto those brakes right now, well, he's looking second fastest, and he's running the number one, of course, in tribute to the fact he's entitled to do so as our reigning overall GT4 champion. Even this special event, he's allowed to take that number one for. That is awarded to him all the way through to when he fails in defending his championship crown, or he decides to optionally waive the right to do so. But as he heads on through, what else is happening elsewhere? Well, we do look to the official photographer from Sim Racing Magazine. That's none other than Jules Gardner. And as he makes way around right now, I can tell you one thing, he's definitely there. He can put together some incredibly good photos, and right now trying to put together an even better lap, albeit he's half a second off of Ralph Mayer at the moment. I suspect he's still trying to find a bit more pace out there. But speaking of pace, right at the top of the tower, and that's overall and in Porsche Cup, it's none other than Simon Povey. He's looking incredibly quick right now, is the tall and taller racing driver, and he's teaming up with none other than Gary Toole, who you'll also see in the Porsche Cup class. And well, a 2 minute 0.669, that might be a lap now that's going to be very hard to beat. But as Alex Gall makes his way out to the final corner, let's ride on board with your McLaren 570S driver. Does he carry on down towards turn number one? And the answer is no. He is done and dusted here with regards to qualifying, I suspect. I think he feels as though he's done enough. Can we get an on-board lap with somebody else? We might be able to here as Daniel Perry makes his way to the line, but he stays all the way over left. I think he feels as though this is going to be the best lap he can deliver. And well, in the end, it is going to be a 2 minute 10.752. So well done to Perry for that one. As Lee Berridge, meanwhile, he's still got a bit more to do here as he comes out the final corner. Well, he's on his third lap. I suspect he's going to try and get one more in before all is said and done. And Berridge there brings the car all the way over. And well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get some American muscle, shall we? Here he goes onto his final flying lap. It's coming down in towards Jindabying Bend, and as he does so, all the way down to third gear, nice and tight to the wall. Coming out now, roaring up in towards turns 2 and 3. As he brings the car over here, you'll see not building up anywhere near as much speed as the Porsche Cup car, but still onto the brakes there, down to second gear. Now run his way through left into right into left. Really mounting those curves, something you can do in the Mustang as you can in the Mercedes. And coming out of this corner, now flat out, let's listen to that engine. Goodness me, it sends chills down your spine, doesn't it, as he now makes his way up towards the hairpin, looking for his brake marker and braking at around 160 bits per quarter apex down to first gear. Plenty of curb there, pull the car around. Ooh, a lot of power oversteer. Does he correct it? He tries to. It goes wrong for Lee Berridge, and in the end it rolls to the grass, rolling one way then the other, and when he barks up there 9, it's all gone a bit wrong. He'll tow to the pits, and Lee Berridge will be going no higher in the end as there Ralph Mayer improves to 16th place in GT4, and we do have Kim Such making his way on down the backstretch at the moment, and with 2 minutes left to go, Such right now I think eager to see if he can do anything more with this one, but will he be able to, the Oris Digital driver, given the fact that to improve he needs to find at least 4 attempts to beat Oliver Carwadine. And Carwadine right now, well, definitely somebody he fought with quite hard last season, but as he tiptoes his way around, he decides enough's enough and he's going to bring it into the pit lane instead. That pit lane entry, of course, very tight on the exit of the final corner.
And it's always been an interesting one to come into the pits there, because essentially you come through this corner at full speed on a normal racing line, but what you have to do is actually keep it very tight to the wall through the apex there in order to make your way into the pits, as Guy Edwards there almost makes the mistake of carrying too much speed. And you have the pit limiter line straight away after that exit, so you really have to get that line absolutely nailed together, whereas the exit out the pit lane is parallel to the start finish straight and on the outside agenda being then going in towards turn number 2. But as Guy Edwards brings things to a close, it looks like it's Simon Povey's to take then in the Porsche Cup class for pole position, and meanwhile in the GT4 class it's going to be Alex Gall. But the gaps, well, for Povey over Edwards at the front of the Porsche Cup field, it is 3.5 tenths. Meanwhile, for Gall versus Reynolds, it's a repeat essentially of season 7. It is 300ths, if that. Very close between them. But as we say hello to Richard Simnor, who's here today cheering on, I do believe, the DCW racing drivers. And I want to tell you one thing right now, we'd love to see Richard Simnor on the grid, a very established sim racer in GT3 classes, and I'd definitely love to see him race a GT4. Richard, I'm not trying to encourage you to join the GT4 grid in the near future whatsoever, but wink wink nudge nudge, we would definitely love to see you on it at some point, and I hope you do well, good sir. But as we do see Matthias 10 parked up at the moment as well in his Free Sim Sport Mercedes, he's not going anywhere at the moment, he's just waiting now for the clock to count on down, and most of the drivers will be doing so as Lee Berridge parks up there. No, it hasn't been a good end to that qualifying session after that mistake. So easy to make a mistake, and of course these GT4s with a wholly new physics and tyre model for what has been the last 6 months or so now. And well, I can tell you one thing, that new tyre model has definitely made these cars a lot trickier to drive. But as this qualifying session comes to a close, well, it's been definitely an interesting one. Simon Povey leading the way in Porsche Cup, but it has been close from second all the way down to fourth between Edwards, Idris Abdahi and Bailiff. But as everyone now makes their way home to their pit stalls, well, we're going to take a bit of a brief 5-minute breather to give our drivers an opportunity to get themselves warmed up, should we say, or more so take that all-important comfort break. Now, of course, we're not going to be leaving you, but the circuit will now be available to our drivers for 5 minutes. There are laps that they can put in if they so desire, but not everybody will do so, as we do see here none other than Daniel Osler making his way back into the car. And why do drivers go out in a 5-minute period, I hear you ask? Well, there's a number of reasons. Some of them, they just want to keep putting the laps in. They have a need to do so, as we do look to Stuart Bickley here in the DCW racing machine. The idea being they want to keep the blood pumping. I was going to say the blood flumping there, which was a combination of thumping and flowing, but in the end not quite. But Stuart Bickley right now definitely trying to give this race a good old thump with regards to trying to take the win in the Porsche Cup class, but as he makes his way on out there, you can see the speed difference on exit at turn number 5 already between the Porsche Cup car and the GT4 Mercedes. Some do like to keep the adrenaline flowing. Meanwhile, others, by comparison, what they like to do is gauge the conditions out there. And, well, you're probably thinking right now, well, not too much has changed. Well, you would perhaps be a little bit wrong in that. Indeed, even the smallest variation in temperature can prove to be a huge deciding factor. And right now, we do have an ambient at 25 degrees centigrade and a track temperature at 28 degrees centigrade. So we have relatively pleasant conditions. Plenty of sunshine, a little bit of cloud out there. No chance of rain whatsoever, as far as I'm aware. Although we do have a relatively moderate amount of humidity at 60%, but I don't think any rain's expected here today in the US state of Florida. Indeed, we are going to be living up to the Sunshine State in this, what is approximately an hour-long race we can expect, or just over for the 30 laps we're expecting our Porsche Cup cars to deliver. The intrigue will be, of course, in the fact that with a track temperature around that point, these tyres will definitely, or the tyres on all machines will definitely experience quite a bit of wear as the race goes on, and nobody wants to overheat their tyres too aggressively, because otherwise you may be forced to pit sooner rather than later, and nobody ever wants to really change tyres at the pit lane. All you want to do, if you can, is go for a splash and dash of fuel, because changing tyres normally takes extra time. And well, as we do see Stuart Bickley make his way on down, keep in mind, of course, these Porsche Cup cars, based on their regulations, they are not allowed to change tyres and have fuel put in the car at the same time. It is done separately. So therefore, you can imagine fuel will go in, and then it is 7 seconds per every tyre that is changed on average. So you're looking at a fuel stop, plus if you went for all 4 tyres, an extra 28 seconds there. GT4s, I do believe they are allowed to take fuel and also do the tyres at the same time, but it is 1 tyre at a time, which always leads to a little bit of intrigue with regards to the GT4s, because do you change all 4 tyres, which is going to take much longer than the fuel you're going to put into the car typically? Do you change perhaps 1 or 2 tyres instead? But then which ones do you change? And the normal thing is you change the tyres on a side of the car, you don't change them on an end of the car. So here today at Sebring, we are racing on a clockwise circuit. most would typically change what would be the left-hand side tyres, particularly for the Ford Mustang tyres. They would change that front left as a minimum, and most likely the rear left, because those tyres will do the most work. The front left, of course, is worn down because the weight of the car is towards the front engine rear-wheel drive drivetrain, whereas the rear left tyre does more traction work coming out of, say, the hairpin at turn number 7, and also some of these sharper right-angled right-hand corners at turns 10 and 13. Meanwhile, if you're looking at a car such as none other than Alex Gold's McLaren, well, by comparison, mid-engine rear-wheel drive, it is the rear tyres that will do most of the work, because you've got the drive over them. It's the rear left in particular that will be the most vulnerable, and the rear right will gradually accumulate wear. But do you also change the front left if you're going to change a couple of tyres just to balance things out on one side of the car, which means going into right-hand corners initially, the car will feel quite stiff. It will want to understeer until those tyres warmed up where it is in the left-handers. You'll naturally find the car will want to understeer more and more the later you go into the race if you only change the two tyres on the left-hand side. It is a real science on the strategy here. That's what makes it so interesting over what will be only 30 laps of racing, but to be fair, over 30 laps of racing, that's a lot of time, and a lot can happen here at Sebring. About a minute to go. Well, if you want some other quick tidbits with regards to the Sebring circuit, when endurance races were hosted here originally, what was quite funny is retirements didn't happen from cars breaking down necessarily. Retirements happened from drivers getting lost. Now, if you're wondering why, well, keep in mind, if you think about Le Mans Corner in particular, which we are going to see Alex Gold making his way up to very shortly, until they started to introduce more fluorescent paint, and also we did see this circuit become more and more familiar with drivers, what used to happen, particularly at night time when there was not significant ambient lighting, is that drivers would come into this section and they wouldn't know where to go. And because they've got no road markings as such, or no visible road markings back then, they used to go straight on here thinking it was a longer run before they got to Le Mans Corner, and they would subsequently actually drive in towards the airport itself, and because they could not find their way back onto circuit, they would retire from the race because they didn't know where they were anymore. And there were multiple instances. It was not just one driver getting it wrong. There were several instances over the first couple of decades of racing here at Sebring where that did happen. So an interesting one at Sebring, a circuit that definitely where drivers have got lost in a race. I've never heard of that before at any other circuit. I don't know about you guys and girls, but we're not going to get lost here, because warm-up is complete. It's time to head to the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and who is going to be your winners today in GT4 and Porsche Cup? Well, it's about time to find out here in the 180 kilometres of Sebring, brought to you by Sim Racing Magazine. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is all they'll line up for a one and only race today. Starting with the Porsche Cup class, we have Simon Povey on pole position for Tool and Tooler Motorsports. He will be joined on the front row of the grid by none other than Guy Edwards, the privateer. We then have Ben Idris Abdullahi starting in third for Satellite Racing, just ahead of John Bailey for winner of Bennett Racing. Then we have Rob Sharp beginning the day in fifth there for Burris Racing, the Scotsman just ahead of Stuart Bickley for DCW Racing. And it's going to be Gary Toole, the other member of Tooler and Tooler Motorsport, ahead of Chris Jennings there for Axis Simsport. Round of the top 10, it's going to be Paul Goffin for Sim Racing Magazine and Ryan Penny for Oris Racing. And at the bottom end of what will be your Porsche Cup class, starting in 11th place, we are going to have Ollie Carwadine there for Oris Racing, just ahead of Kim Such. His teammate will be joining him on that row, and then on row number 7 to complete the Porsche Cup cars, it's going to be Ben Sieber for DCW Racing, a late entry, but very happy to have him on the grid. And we also do have joining there none other than Daniel Huntley. Then we come to your GT4s, and as we can see your GT4s getting ready to go, it's going to be Alex Gull who starts the head of their pack on row number 1. The chicane Apex Misters driver will be joined on the front row by Stuart Reynolds. They'll be very familiar with one another, and the Fury Simsport driver's got some work to do if he wants to beat that McLaren. From the Britain and the Frenchman, it'll be the German of Niels Core for Satellite Racing, ahead of none other than Thomas Fischer for Satellite Racing. The American driver on home soil wants to be a hero, but can he do so when he's got plenty of roles behind and in front of him? One of those behind him, and Daniel Osler there for Fury Simsport in the company of Matthias Tem. Here the two teammates line up together. Then behind the Dutchman, it's going to be none other than Thomas Pugh for Axis Simsport, who's just ahead of Fury Simsport, Daniel Perry. Then it's going to be completing your GT4 top 10, none other than what will be Andrew Jones for DCW Racing and Matthew Croft for Axis Simsport. Outside the top 10 of the GT4s, it's going to be Lee Berridge there for Boosted Motorsport, ahead of Martin Kenyon for DXT Motorsports. And then on row number 7, we're going to have the combination pair of Simon Clifton for Axis Simsport and Oris Racing's Heinz Mayer. Outside their top 14, starting in none other than 15th place, it's going to be Mark Johnson for Trackmouse Racing, and then we'll have none other than Ralph Mayer starting in at 16th place there for Oris Racing. And on the final row on the grid for the GT4s, and overall, it is going to be Jules Gardner for Sim Racing Magazine and Andrew Marsden for Sim Racing Magazine as well. So they bring out the back of the field, and well, ladies and gentlemen, this formation lap very much underway. And, well, we're not too far away from going green flag racing for you one and only time here today in this special event. And as we do say hello to a few more of you in the YouTube chat, including none other than Scarlet MZ8TS, who says Dan. And also we do say hello there to none other than CPTL7457, who says hiya and hello to you as well. Good sir, and I hope you're doing well and hope you're all doing well tuning in right now. And if you've had a day that's given you a frown, we're going to turn that upside down into a smile. I can assure you that. As right now our GT4 driver's a little bit away, but we're looking at your Porsche Cup cars. They make the way on down, and as they do, well, we can see here Rob Sharp finds himself right in the heart of the Porsche Cup pack. 14 Porsche Cup cars here today, an absolutely brilliant field, and we do have a grand total of none other than 18 GT4s. It is an absolutely brilliantly split field, and as they all come through, we also say hello to CB Tuttle, who says, really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out, and I bet you we're with you on that one, because right now, well, remember, multi-class, it's not about how it starts, it's how they all interweave into each other midway through the race, and who exactly gets it right on strategy and finding track plays. But as they all come down, and we see Richard Simmel saying, giving his teammates all the tactics they need over the radio. He's acting as their spotter today, and he's giving them the astute advice, which is none other to not crash. And Steve Tuttle says they go fast, which is also a very viable tactic, no doubt about it, and, well, definitely there, one that all the drivers can learn from. Well, who will go the fastest of them all? Who will avoid crashing out here? Because getting it wrong at Sebring is not an easy thing to recover from. Well, as we do see our GT4 field there just a little bit further back, holding the gap around 5 seconds at the moment, as Alex Gale has been instructed to do so. Indeed, that's why they were in the driver brief and all being told what to do. We'll look into the back of your Porsche Cup cars. Daniel Huntley, we rode on board for him for a brief moment. The privateer 9, he's got it all to do from the back, but to be fair, races have been won from very far back in the field in time, and he has got the Ayrton Senna hat there, the helmet on, and, well, perhaps he can channel his inner Brazilian today, but will he be able to do so here, the Briton? We will see, because they now make the way to the final stages of this formation lap. Well, here is Simon Povey, shaking from side to side, trying to get as much lateral heat into those tyres as he can for one last moment. But, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Simon Povey makes his way into the final quarter. The start zone will be on the other side of what will be the walkover gantry on the start finish straight, and it's to Simon Povey to take us away for the 180 kilometres of Sebring. And it's go, go, go. Povey goes immediately here. And as the Porsche Cup cars make the way down towards turn number 1, the GT4s can't go just yet. But Povey leads the ball down towards Genderby and Bend. But coming in towards that braking zone, you can see a fanning out there, 3 wide almost. Let's go to Ben Idris Abdullahi battling with John Bailiff. Meanwhile, back in the GT4s, they've got as well. They go green, and Alex Gale right now leads them down in towards the braking zone for turn number 1. With Stuart Reynolds and Niels Core close side by side here, coming into that flying fast left-hander. But as they all roll the way on through, we look back to your leaders right now, because we can see already Povey started to pull away at a rate of knots. As meanwhile, Ben Idris Abdullah, he holds on to second. He's stolen it away from Guy Edwards coming through the opening few quarters, and now almost they go up towards what will be turn number 7 for the first of many times we're asking. We're coming on down here, we see a bit of a fan out there. Edwards looking for the move, but he can't quite find it. Gary Toole, meanwhile, looking for a bit of a launch up the inside of Rob Sharp. He's not going to be able to find that either. But then further back, we do have our GT4s now making the way up towards said heavy braking zone, and they've all come through. We've had a bit of an incident for Lee Berridge, I do believe, and also some difficulty for Paul Goffins. They've both fallen back a little bit, but we'll see them come back forward shortly. As meanwhile, Daniel Perry there and Thomas Pugh going side by side. The Fury Simsport driver are having to go defensive here, coming out of 7 in towards 8 and 9. And well, Porsche has the better acceleration initially, but now here comes the Mercedes on full attack. And as they come through Fangio Bend and up towards the next braking zone. Well, Perry on the inside here. Is he going to go for it? You can see Pugh in the end trying to make sure that he's able to hold the line. But Perry they're coming across as much as possible, squeezing Thomas Pugh. And in the end, Daniel Perry will make that defence stand, but that's going to cost them time to put tyres 10 in front, and 10 might be able to break away. But back up to your Porsche Cup class, and right now we can see Guy Edwards running very happily in that third place, albeit he won't be too happy. He's lost the place at the start, but he's not losing Idris Abdullahi. That's the most important thing, and therefore his job right now is to try and stay with him as much as possible. Meanwhile, oh, that's got around there. Who's that got around for? That's Ben Sieber. Sieber's gone sliding loose there. Lamont Ben, he needs to get himself back on the road quickly. Will the GT4s catch up to him? And there he goes. So Sieber's able to avoid drama, and he doesn't have to worry about having to carve his way through the other class, at least for now. But onto the backstretch they all go, and Alex Gale, meanwhile, still leading that GT4 class as he heads on down towards what will be turn number 17. Lee Berridge, I believe, has had to retire from the race immediately, so something has gone very wrong. Not quite sure exactly what's happened to him, but we will get a replay of it shortly, and we'll get a replay of some of the moments that happened right at the start as well in the classes. Obviously, couldn't quite catch it all, given making sure that both classes starts are seen, but coming on to lap number 2. Well, right now, things calm down for a moment. I say a moment because Thomas Pugh is all over the back of Daniel Perry again. We run on board here with the Access Sim Sport driver who's trying to make haste and hay and getting ready to go around the outside of Gender B and Ben. This is nowhere near going to be easy, but he's going to try it. And well, the Porsche driver, of course, just holds that inside line. It's going to be a lazy line on the inside. The idea is he just wants to extend the corner out and force Pew to have to back off. And the Access Sim Sport driver looking one way, then the other again. This is not going to work out for him. Further behind, we've got 2 wide. That's Kenyon versus Johnson. These two familiar with each other in other series, but right now, Martin Kenyon in his McLaren, looking left, looking right, looking centre, and on the end, dead centre of the road is Mark Johnson's Aston Martin. And well, that's an unconventional GT4. We don't normally see people drive that Aston Martin, but still, Mark Johnson is brave in it. And the reason why it's not a popular car is because of its gearbox, whereby it has a very odd gear ratio set. It is a car that you normally have to drive in a higher gear at most corners compared to every other car out there to get the most out of it. But with that, it means you are always at risk of essentially either being too low down the torque range, alternatively too high and get too much wheel spin. But Mark Johnson's going to see what he can do here today, and with it being a fun event, there's nothing on the line. Well, therefore, he's going to just see what he can do here, currently in 12th in the GT4s. Getting ready to come into the next braking zone. We'll even be for a brief moment as we take a look back at some of the bigger moments from the start of the race, ladies and gentlemen, and we do go back to your green flag start. So this was right at the start, and as our Porsche Cup class got underway, let's take a look at that moment where we did see what was second place change hands. So Simon Povey, he decided to go quite early. That outwitted the next 2 drivers. In particular, we did see Guy Edwards get a good run there compared to Idris Abdullahi, but the problem was in turn 1 that the Satellite Racing driver was right on his inside, so therefore he turned on in, and we did give enough space in fact there. So what did go wrong? And well, coming out the corner, I think there's the explanation. We did see a car go around in the rear of the picture, and that was Idris Abdullahi. He then up the inside Edwards into the braking zone for turn number 3. So that's how he got it done. There was contact between the 2 of them. Cold tyres, a little bit of oversteer there, but Idris Abdullahi, he took the risk and he made it work. This is what happened to Paul Coffin, meanwhile, as he got underway. And down towards the opening corner, he was right in the middle there of the run for the 10th. Oh, a bit of contact side by side there with the number 22, and that was Chris Jennings. He made haste into the side of, and in that slipped into the barrier. It unsettled the car and unsettled him. We then had this for Lee Berridge later on lap number 1. This was in the GT4 class as they headed into Gender B in. Made his way through that left-hander, and as he did so, what went wrong? Oh, the car snapped loose there on him into the barrier, and like that, car went spinning around, and at that point, I can imagine it was a tow to the pits for the damage he picked up, and indeed the whole front bumper coming away there, exposed engine block, it was all over. Meanwhile, we come to what happened to Ben Sieber later on. He slid his way into our camera shot, albeit in a remote part of it later on that open lap. This was down in towards Le Mans, took a bit too much apex curve there at 15, and the rear of the car went sliding loose, and in the end he almost ended up in the airport itself. But thankfully he didn't take flight and he made his way back on there, and we've grounded him back to some racing. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live racing. And as we do, well, what's changed since we've left it behind? Well, Thomas Fisher, he's now got Daniel Osler behind him as Osler is on an attack. But they come charging up towards what will be turn number 10. Well, right now, it does seem as though Fisher is safe from Osler's Porsche, at least for now. But a question being asked there for CV Tuttle, which is that not an off-track into that turn onto the back straight? So that you'd be referring to is none other than turns 15 and 16. No, not quite. The track limits at turns 15 and 16 are quite generous in the fact you are allowed to run out quite wide into the runoff area, or what is the old runway, in order to open up turn 16. But if you go too wide, you will pick up an off track. It's a very tricky one as the drivers make the way through. We ride on board with Stuart Reynolds here, and we can give you a visual example of it. So he made his way in towards 15. Here he's got to stay within the confines of the track, but through this left kink, and now you'll see they all go beyond the white line. You can see what is the tarmac that's been rubbered in there, or what is the tyre tread that's been rubbered in there, we should say, and that's how far they can go. Any wider than that, and it is essentially an off track as classified there, and it can result in a slowdown. It's essentially one of those track limits whereby there's leniency until there's not. You've got to do it based on memory, and hopefully that fills in the gap there. There's no visual as to what it is. It is purely based on drivers experimenting how far they can go until they go too far. But of course, if you do go too far, what you end up doing is essentially you unsettle your car by default. So there's a natural penalty, particularly in GT4s, but also Porsche Cup cars, run too wide, and you end up essentially chucking the weight of the car from what is right to left to right, and you will spin out going through Le Mans Bend. But as Reynolds continues to give chase here, getting close to goal, but not quite close enough yet. Fuel saving may be a theme here as he decides to tuck in, as these two right now starting to bolt away a little bit. But what's happening further down? We do see Thomas Pugh here. He's still in close company with Daniel Perry. These two have been fighting since the start of the race. He takes a look up the inside into turn 3. Doesn't quite work there. He just stays behind instead. But Pugh right now definitely thinking to himself he wants that place back. Simon Clifton, he's ahead of this man, Mark Johnson. You can see Clifton there. his own Axis Sim Sport Mercedes, and Johnson's still in that Aston Martin pushing on, but he's got Martin Kenyon close behind him. And then we do see Heinz Batt in the white and black Ford Mustang. Well, he's not gained any places, nor has he lost any so far. I'll tell you one thing, he's still enjoying himself out there, and that's the most important thing. But we have had, unfortunately, the retirement for Lee Berridge from the race after his incident with the wall agenda being on the open lap. And we've also got Paul Goffin in the pit lane at the moment, undertaking repair work, as we do say hello to George Mattock there. And good evening to you, George. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see so many of you tuned in. But back to the front of the GT4 class we go. Goal right now holding on that little bit longer versus Stuart Reynolds. I wouldn't be surprised here if there is going to be a chop and change between these two before long, because Reynolds is definitely right now looking increasingly threatening. But from them, let's go back to some Porsche Cup racing, shall we? And Stuart Bickley, they're going a bit deep in towards what was Sunset Bend. However, there are multiple ways to cut that corner, and that's one of them. You turn it into a V shape. The only problem with that is, if you've got somebody who's very agile under braking, such as Rob Sharp behind, if he can get to your inside before you make the V cut, he does have the right to the race line there, and he can essentially make the move on you. It's a move which is definitely an all-or-nothing style move, but to be fair, if the door's open, why would you not put your foot in it? And as he makes his way through turn number 3 right now, Sharp, of course, a very sensible head for a Burris as he roars his way through turn number 5. And he's eager to try and take that 5th place off Stuart Bickley. But Bickley right now doing a good job of fending them off. And they do have Gary Toole for close company just a little bit further back. Down towards what will be the hairpin at this point, and well, for all the pace that Sharp has had in the opening couple of corners, coming out of turn number 5 wasn't quite there. Now, what's quite interesting, something we perhaps didn't talk about as much with regards to the Porsche Cup car when we talked about the change compared to the previous one. We talked about how it's easier to drive with the fact that you do have the electronics package now, but why is it also harder to drive them? Well, the problem is, particularly if you're, say, a GT4 or GT4 racer, those electronics, you rely on them quite heavily, but you never want to use them too much. In the Porsche Cup car, it is the same. You want to use the ABS to potentially prevent micro lockups, but you don't want to just hammer the brakes into every braking zone, because if you trigger the ABS, that extends your braking zone. Because, to put it in basic terms, what ABS does, it essentially, if you apply too much brake power, the anti-lock braking system says, right, reduce the braking power, make it so that not as much force is being applied as requested, and therefore that means that the braking force is reduced. It means that your braking zone becomes longer, and therefore you start to understeer into these braking zones. So the aim of the game in these Porsche Cup cars now is to be as smooth as possible on the brakes, but also to be somewhat as heavy as possible, only on initial entry, and then trail off very quickly. So it's trying to find essentially the biting point where you do not trigger the electronics whatsoever, or you only trigger them right at the very end of the braking zone. That's the hard part now, whereas previously with no ABS, it was all about being essentially gentle on initial braking and then maximising the force as you get towards the slowest point in the braking zone, whereas now it's the other way. You want to be as heavy as possible initially, but trail off as quickly as you can. And that's why these cars are so difficult, particularly for drivers who've been big fans of the 992.1. They do struggle with it currently, but we come to your GT4s. They have that same challenge with their ABS as well, albeit these cars, of course, not carrying anywhere near as much speed by comparison into those braking zones, and therefore they're a little bit more agile on the electronics itself. But coming on down the back stretch here right now for Alex Gall. Still and Stuart Reynolds keeping him honest, and a bit further back we do have Thomas Fisher, who's now found himself in a little bit of close. Oh, goodness me, who's that into the barrier in the rear of the picture? Is that Martin Kenyon? I think it is. Kenyon gets himself turned around. Ralph Mayer comes on through there, but Martin Kenyon goes on around. That was a big knock to the barrier there. That was not a comfortable one to witness at all from a distant view, and as he gets himself back together, we'll see what that means for it. Does he have to come into the pits for a fast repair? Meanwhile, Alex Gall making his way down the start for the straight. You can see Stuart Reynolds now a 10th behind, as further back Daniel Osler here going defensive towards Jinder B and Bend. Suddenly in the GT4 class, everything's erupting, and Niels Core has just set the fastest lap of the GT4 race as well. So a 209.93 for Niels Core, and I do wonder right now where he sees an opportunity to close up to the top two. We're going all the way through this left-hander right now for Osler and also Tem. Queuing up behind him, Matthias Tem right now. We know he's a very smart driver for Fury Sim Sport. And whilst he might have qualified a bit further down, he's trying to apply those smarts to move through. But what's going to be the game plan? I suspect it's going to be strategy first and foremost now, rather than making an aggressive move. You can also see that Daniel Perry, Thomas Pugh and Andrew Jones together. And, well, Andy's his known to friends as he comes down to that braking zone, waiting for his turn. But just keeping an eye on things. But speaking of keeping an eye on things, we saw that nasty knock to the barrier only moments ago for Martin Kenyon. Let's take a look back and understand what exactly happened. this was coming through Le Mans Bend as he made his way in towards turn of 16. Took a lot of apex curb there, but that didn't make a difference. Took even more curb there at 16. That caused the rear of the car to slide loose, and at that point, the rear of the car became a pendulum, and it swung completely loose. And for Martin Kenyon, even though he had the brakes on, there was no way that would stop him before he hit the barrier. And well, unfortunately for Martin Kenyon, will he have to come to the pits to repair work? No, from what I'm hearing in my ear, but it's definitely going to be a punishing moment of that, and now he's got a lot more work to do in this race. But coming back to your live racing then, well, we've talked about GT4s, let's go back to your Porsche Cup cars for a moment. Because Simon Povey leading, but the gap, it's only growing little by little. Povey has just set the fastest lap of the race, a 2:00 point, none other than 5.5. But what we can see is Ben Idris Abdullahi 3 tenths or so behind and setting personal best. Then you've got Guy Edwards 4 seconds back. Now Edwards, of course, did qualify ahead of the satellite racing driver, but right now does not seem to be able to match the pace. But I wonder whether there might be quite a bit of tyre saving going on here for some of these Porsche Cup drivers. Perhaps they're thinking they're going to do the entire race distance on the single set of tyres and not change one. So as we said earlier, they put fuel in first, then they change tyres. If they're going to change them in the pit lane, they do not do it at the same time, unlike your GT4s. But hold the phone on that, as we do come back to your GT4 leaders. A 10th again for Goal and Reynolds here. They are still nose to tail, and I think Stuart Reynolds at this point, he's just going to keep us all guessing. He is teasing us as to when he's going to make that move for the lead, if he's going to make it right now. And Alex Gar's pretty thinking to himself, just make the move already so I can save some fuel off the back of you. And Reynolds at this point is probably saying to him, Morse code, albeit, or mentally through telepathy, trying to say to him, no, I'm very comfortable right now. But as they're coming through, meanwhile, back to Daniel Usler. Well, he is definitely over the back of Thomas Fisher now like a bad rash. But the problem he's got is that Porsche has not got the top end compared to that Ford Mustang. So as quick as he can be out the corners, he needs to just stay in the draft there. If he can stay within 2 tenths, he does match the speed of the Mustang into the next braking zone. But beyond that, he actually loses out. And that's why he's literally attached himself to the rear bumper of the car in front. And, well, flash of the lights there. And I think right now, Daniel Usler is trying to say, can you get a move on, or I'm going to try and make a move on you? And Thomas Fisher at this point is probably saying, why are you flashing me? I'm going as quick as I can. I'm doing nothing wrong. But then again, driver Morse code there, it's a much more specialised code than the Enigma code. And as they make their way out of turn number 10 and in towards 11 right now, well, these two drivers definitely get very eager to attack. Whereas Thomas Fisher trying to hold on. And Matthias Tem watching this right now like a hawk, as here comes a move. That's a bit brave at the inside. And in the end, Daniel Usler, I think that was a little bit too eager there, to be fair to him. As much as he wanted it, the door was always going to close that apex and that far back. And at Tower Bend right now, well, he's got it around. And well, it's no longer going to be a successful attack there. It was a successful tower defence from none other than Thomas Fisher. But of course, that's one view from that camera angle. And I do wonder potentially whether there's more angles there that might show you a different story. We'll get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, now Thomas Fisher all over the back of Perry. And well, Andrew Jones also there as Daniel Usler gets himself back together. As he does so, falling down the order. And now knowing he's got even more work to do. See also there Matthew Cross at McLaren, a very colourful McLaren there. How could we not notice it as he makes his way on down for Axel Silversport in the 113, up from 11th to 10th in the GT4 class. Still a bit more to do, however, and it's a long way to victory. But back to the Porsche Cup class, and as we do look up to Stuart Bickley, Rob Sharp and Gary Toole, they've all been separated by a grand total of second for the last 3 laps. No real change between the trio, albeit they are losing none other than Bailiff, who is now 3.5 seconds up the road. It does seem as though John Bailiff is now starting to turn on the taps a little bit in terms of pace, and is hoping he can chase down the top 3. Right now, it does seem as though for Rob Sharp, he's between a rock and a hard place. He can't quite catch Bickley, but he can't quite drop Gary Toole either. So I think they're all equal each other at this point, and it's about who's going to make the micro mistakes now as to whether the gap opens or closes. Speaking of closing gaps, well, John Bailiff getting very close here to Guy Edwards coming down the Allman Straight. In towards sunset they go, and the sun is gradually setting as well. That's going to look beautiful later on. And we ride on board the front bumper here of the Win It or Bin It Racing 222. And Bailiff right now, well, doesn't quite get the run out the corner there. That will be dirty air in some respects, but it will also be the fact that he just didn't have as smooth as a run into the bend by comparison. Coming down towards Gender Being Bend. And through that left-hander he goes. And you can see that gap just staying pronounced. Although, I can tell you one thing, John Bailiff, no stranger to doing well in a Porsche Cup car. He was recently featured in one of the iRacing official Strength of Field broadcasts from the iRacing Porsche Cup by Conspit series. And in that, he qualified very well. But unfortunately, in the race, it did go a little bit against the grain. That being back at Daytona, if only a week ago, if my memory serves me correctly. But right now for Bailiff, he's hoping for a bit more here today, if he can. He does make his way past then another Andrew Marsden, the GT4 driver, respecting the blue flags. And with regards to those blue flags, we do very soon start to expect the Porsche Cup car leaders to overlap with the back markers of the GT4s. Well, the point being now is that there's going to be an expectation of how they engage with each other. The rule of the lapping in this instance for multi-class is that the slower class has to drive predictably, and it's the responsibility of the lead class to make the moves. That does not mean that the GT4s are expected to just get out the way of the Porsche Cup cars. It is not like Formula 1, it's quite the inverse. The GT4s are to hold their lines and drive as smart and safe as possible, whereas the Porsche Cup cars will have to overtake them essentially, but make it very clear they are overtaking. But right now, speaking of being very clear that somebody wants to make an overtake, this is Thomas Pugh still on the back of Daniel Perry. And, well, these two right now I think will be battling to the end of time as we ride aboard the dashboard here of the number 23. And coming down the start finish straight this time to go on to what will be their 9th tour on the circuit under race conditions. Well, Pugh has got close enough at every straight into every corner, but that Porsche has just got a little bit more in those apexes, which we'd expect, and it just keeps it safe. But coming in towards Gender Bean, you can definitely see there Perry not as happy with the amount of speed he can carry into the quad. He's not as confident with the entry speed compared to Pugh. That is where the Mercedes driver is gaining. It's not just on the straights, but also the fact he carries about 2 miles an hour more into the corner, and it's on exit where he essentially has to back off because of getting too close to the car in front of the concertina effect. That's why he can't make the progress. So he's now got to work this out. How does he carry more speed on exit but from further back to get the overlap into the next braking zone? That's going to be his challenge. Going round into the braking zone for him. But meanwhile, we look to go and Stuart Reynolds for a brief moment. They're still nose to tail. They've been like this for some time. Well, as they continue to push onwards, we are going to very shortly take a trip back in time to what was this sequence of corners and particularly what went wrong through Daniel Osler. And here we go. So this was the battle at the time with none other than his rivals there, of the Satellite Racing 4 Mustang in particular, and in the end the 47 driver of Thomas Fisher. Well, a bit of an interesting one there. That camera angle would suggest that there was a door open for Osler. What did it look like from his on-board, I wonder? Here we go. And, well, Osler getting a good run out of 11 in towards 12. Went for the cutback immediately. On the brakes early there, Fisher. Went a little bit deep, and I think Osler thought that Fisher was going to understeer wide. I think I can see what the Fury Sport driver was going for. That's very unfortunate, however, and, well, what he saw happen was the Mustang roll deep into the braking zone, but he thought the Mustang was going to carry on straight and the door would stay open. In the end, it didn't. Fisher did get the car back together and make the late apex, and the argument will be, was the door shut on him? Did he have sufficient overlap to have the right to the racing line at that point? Well, we're not going to try and guess that one, ladies and gentlemen. That's for the stewards to do if it gets reported in this fun event. I'll tell you one thing right now, those are always the big contentious ones where it's not quite clear to either party who may be in the right or wrong. But meanwhile, that's definitely gone wrong there for Thomas Pugh as he takes a bit of an exploration run coming all the way around what was Sunset Bend, running so wide at that point and losing some time to Daniel Perry. Well, you can go out that wide as he demonstrates, but going out that wide does cost you time. And of course, you've got to be wary of the fact that you're also going out onto the marbles all the way out there. And right now, Daniel Perry again under pressure, and Thomas Pugh, he couldn't get any closer at this point. I think he's thinking to himself, what do I have to do? Because I'm able to run so close to the Porsche in front, but it's not helping me whatsoever. And all he's got to do is find a way out the inside, but it's so easy to say it, it's so difficult to do it. Looking back to your leaders in Porsche Cup, meanwhile, this is getting intriguing because the gap between Simon Povey and Ben Idris Abdullahi has closed down over the last few laps. To bring you that time delta, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, the gap was maximised very early on in the race, but over the last couple of laps, it has now been oscillating back and forth between what has been around 1.6 seconds all the way down to 1 second. But also keep in mind now that these drivers are in amongst the GT4s, so we are starting to see the multi-class action really come to life here for our Porsche Cup machines. And right now for Povey, he needs to find the right time to pick the traffic off, and that's the hardest part. The traffic sometimes comes your way at the ideal spot, sometimes it doesn't, and every time it doesn't, your rival behind, as may have happened for Idris Abdullahi only moments ago, will suddenly they be the ones to gain. But up the inside there of Heinz Mayer goes Simon Povey, so he will clear the Ford Mustang driver nice and easy, whereas Idris Abdullahi, he may have a bit more of a challenge here as they make the way in towards Tower Bend, where he's going to catch that Ford at a bit of an inconvenient place, and in the end he's going to go up the inside into 12, but you can see there he had to lift off. He could not carry as much speed, and that is where traffic giveth and traffic taketh, and that's a prime example of how that gap will now oscillate depending on how the traffic plays into and away from them. But from them, we've got a bit of fighting going on between Mark Johnson and Matthew Croft further down in the GT4 class. And this is the battle for 10th place, with Simon Clifton playing a part of this. And what exactly has happened between these two drivers, I hear you ask? And the answer is, we'll take a quick look back. and this was coming down in towards what was none other than turn 14 into Bishop Bend. Johnson having the better run there versus Croft. Going in towards the left-hand Kings initially, where it's going to be into right-hander of 15, and Croft just stayed on the inside there and said, well, you can have that outside line, it's not going to help you. In fact, that was not coming into turn 15, my apologies, that was coming down into turn number 10. My eyes do deceive me, and almost deceived you all, but coming up towards turn 13, and then Croft able to hold his position. But back to in just the nick of time we come, because as we do, we're now going towards Gender B, and I think Johnson was hoping to go for a move there, but he won't be able to do so, as Croft right now does have right behind him none other than Simon Povey, but in the end he goes out wide there, as Povey's able to take a much tighter exit line. He just Abdullahi up the inside of none other than what will be, I believe, that's going to be Thomas Pugh, and well, he'll squeeze away initially, but this is not falling favourably for Idris Abdullahi at all now, as he will have to pick his way past the GT4s through the most narrow part of the circuit. He will do so successfully, but it will cost him a bit of time. So we are starting to see what is that traffic getting more and more ingrained into the racing mansion now, the Porsche Cup drivers, whereas our GT4 drivers, of course, we're trying to use the Porsche Cup cars to act as a bit of a defensive barrier to their rivals. It gives and takes in their class as well. Although it's definitely at the moment the Porsche Cup class which is spreading out a little bit more. Meanwhile, in the GT4s, we still have some very close running packs, including, of course, the Croft Johnson Clifton group, as we see here fighting over 10th in class. But as they come in towards turn number 10, a bit further behind them, we do have Heinz Mayer. There he is right now, carrying on in the number 2 machine. And he does have Ralph Mayer 8 seconds behind him. And where is Ralph? There he is in his own Porsche Cayman. So on 8 GT4. And well, he's got a comfortable gap with the best part of 7 seconds over Martin Kenyon. And the last of the runners in the GT4 class being Gilles Gardner and also Andrew Marsden. We're unfortunately us losing Lee Berridge right early on. And the same for Paul Goffin, sadly. We lost him after what was an opening lap incident. But from them, we come all the way back to the front of the GT4s. And Alex Giles still leading. Stuart Reynolds still with him. And Reynolds has let the gap open back up a little bit. I think the pressure he was trying to apply now, he's applied a bit too much perhaps, and has decided he doesn't want to overheat the front tyres anymore. Running so close to the car in front, of course, he won't be getting as near as much cooling air as he will when he sits a little bit further back. And that can always serve to overheat tyres and brakes and just increase the degradation rate slightly of the front compound. But you can see Nils Core there in the rear of the picture, and then Thomas Fisher and Matthias Tem. So it is going to be a top 5 all within eyesight of each other. And then just a little bit further back, you can see Daniel Perry bring Thomas Pugh and Andrew Jones along for the ride. Right now, for Thomas Fisher, he won't be thinking about them. He's thinking about trying to make sure this man doesn't get close enough. And Matthias Tem close, but a bit of a gap there. That's the caveat. As meanwhile, well, that's going to be Idris Abdullahi now picking his way on past Perry, Pugh and Jones, and he's able to do so. And Andrew Jones right now, well, he's definitely gone under the radar a little bit so far, but the DCW Racing driver is staying close as we jump on board with the Welshman, and he's running a livery there. In fact, I would say that livery is a throwback there to the 2010s, the second half of the 2010s Porsche Club Sport racing liveries that we used to see racing on the European continent as part of the SRO package, if anybody remembers those. But as he comes on down there, I wonder if that was the inspiration for that livery. As meanwhile, your number 4 driver right now, well, as close as he can be to Thomas Pugh without providing the back of him. Oh, I wonder if now he's thinking more about strategy here and when to come into the pits. Of course, the fuel tanks they are carrying 60% fuel tanks, I've been informed, so it's going to take them quite a way into this race, and I suspect we are looking essentially at a one-stopper on fuel at least. But time will tell on that. We're going all the way through turns 10, 11, 12. You are seeing the difference there of the Porsche Cayman in terms of where it's able to carry the speed in the corners, but as soon as it gets onto any extended straight, that Mercedes is just able to open up. But a little bit further down the order, we have had some difficulty for Andrew Marsden only moments ago. He's had a bit of a spin, but what exactly happened to him? Well, let's take a trip back in time and find out. So this was Marsden making his way in towards turns 14, 15 and then 16. So came in towards the first part of Le Mans, and as he went through the right hand of the rear of the car, just slipping loose there. A bit too much speed perhaps, and perhaps also an early downshift, which can always spin up the rear wheels and add to that sideways motion. So not an easy moment there, but recovered it quite quickly. Well, we also did have this for Ben Sieber only moments before that. This was your DCW racing driver in the Porsche Cup class, making his way in towards Le Mans Bend. And as he widened it up as much as possible, took all the apex curb, and in the end ran out wide. And, well, thankfully got away with it by touching the grass and straightened the car out there, taking a bit of a rallycross approach instead. But back to your live pictures we go, and as we do, back to Simon Povey, your leader, and we're almost at the halfway point of the race now as he comes up amongst the GT4 leaders. Well, Povey trying to make haste through this traffic, and he just Abdullahi trying to keep up with him, but Povey there finds himself sandwiched between Gull and Reynolds. This is not ideal, and Abdullahi right now will be hoping that he's going to be able to clear them here coming through the corner. We ride on board the dashboard of your 269, and well, the run he's got here, now in 6/10. This has worked out, and look what he's doing immediately. He tucks in behind goal. That's not to just pick up the toe, that's to say to goal, look, I'm immediately coming in you inside, get onto that racing line, and Abdullahi now so close to it on that inside line, looking all over the back of Povey. This is where he's way to gain. The Frenchman right now has maximised his use of that traffic. The last two GT4s he'll see for a while. They'll both see now for an extended period of time, because the next car is the 17th place run in that class, and none other than Andrew Marsden, who's all the way down at Le Mans currently. So they've got the best part of at least 5 or 6 laps before they'll see him, if not more. And right now, Idris Abdullah, he needs to make the most this time. He needs to get on the attack and prevent Povey from being able to break away again. But is this going to go his way, or will Simon Povey, now that they're clear of traffic, will he feel a bit more comfortable of what he can do? Well, that's going to be down to these two. Guy Edwards, meanwhile, we've lost him a bit. There he is on the back of none other than what is Niels Core. But Edwards, I think, has not had a favourable run through the traffic, and the lap times have shown in the fact that his respective lap times, by comparison, if we do a show with regards to the laps that we have seen from our second place driver, well, here they are at the bottom of your screen, and what you can see is Idris Abdullahi on average has been gaining around 3/10 a lap, and that's been the delta essentially. And if anything, it's brought John Bailiff closer, because if we then look at the lap times to Bailiff by comparison, we can see Bailiff has absolutely been building, particularly on lap number 13, took 7/10 out, although on lap 11 he lost almost a whole second. So it gives and takes, and that will be the GT4 traffic, which has really played into and out of the hands. But Guy Edwards definitely has been relegated backwards in third, whereas the two leaders have been propelled forwards. As he comes into that start-finish straight, where he'll cut to the outside here, try and go around Gowan Reynolds before they start to make their way towards the wall. And Gowan then does have a bit of a compromise line, but tucks in as quickly as he can. And it's Gowan there knowing he needs every bit of racing line. Further back, meanwhile, where we can see Thomas Fisher still with Matthias Tem right behind him. Looking back now from the rear of your Ford Mustang driver. And, well, that's why my Porsche Cup car's trying to come through. That's Rob Sharp trying to make his way up the inside of Tem. But Matthias Tem says to him, no, you can wait. You've got turn 3 to do that. But look who's coming up behind Sharp. That is Gary Toole. And here we go. On the inside there, Tem in the end has to squeeze the door. There's a bit of elbows out between the two of them. They make contact, but in the end, Toole, I think, thought he was clear, and meanwhile Tem thought he was also clear, and the two of them making the touch, but they get away with it for now. And now Gary Toole, well, he's got to try and build that momentum once again here. As you can see, Fisher going to the inside with Sharp so eager to get on through, and then comes across, but Toole won't be too upset about that, because Fisher's now out of his way, looking up the inside in towards the hairpin. It's not going to be enough there for the 207 driver, but he is definitely looking for a move here. I think Gary Toole right now is driving a little bit of red mist, albeit understandably he'll cool down in a second, but he wants to attack Rob Sharp whilst he's this close. He's had to work hard to get into this position, even with the GT4 traffic playing one way and then the other, but right now the 207 driver, understandably, he's got his sights set on that 6th place man, and he wants that position as quickly as he can. But from them and all the excitement that's building up between these two, well, they do have Chris Jennings 6 seconds back by comparison. Here is Jennings, and he has a bit of a 3.5 second gap to none other than Ryan Penny. Inside there goes Jennings, trying to make his way past Andrew Jones. He'll do so. Next to be Thomas Pugh. And of course, just trying to make his way back through the machines. It's Ryan Penny. There he is. And right now, number 99 driver here, looking quite happy in what is the prehistoric delivery machine, whereby that is definitely the skeleton of a dinosaur, I do believe. I wonder if that's where Rexy or Roxy from AO Racing were unearthed on a recent dig. I do believe it's an alternative livery that AO Racing have run in recent memory. Next way through turn 16 right now. Penny won't be thinking about dinosaurs. Indeed, he wants to be prehistoric. He wants to be in the modern era here, and he won't want to go extinct in this race. And he'll be wanting to chase down Chris Jennings for that to make another place. Will he be able to? Well, he's got some time to go. As meanwhile, Stuart Reynolds carries on, but into the pits. Looking back, Alex Gull comes in. So does Niels Core. So we definitely get confirmation for the GT4s at least that you can go the best part of 15 laps before you need to pit. So this is a one-stop race for them, and they head on down. But now, surely this is going to be a race essentially, where 1 or 2 tyres may be changed, but otherwise it's the fuel in, and then out you go again. Alex Gull then not going off into the jacks. He stays on the tyres he started on. And meanwhile, Matthias Tem, well, not Matthias Tem, Niels Core, I should say, doing the same as we look to Reynolds. And we're speaking of Matthias Tem, Thomas Fisher's here, and Tem's just behind him. So these guys now promoted to 2nd and 3rd. But remember, they're racing effective for 4th and 5th, as we understand it on strategy. But Go on Core still being serviced in the pit lane. We're keeping an eye on that. Here we do see Fisher being passed around the outside by none other than West Machinery of Chris Jennings, who gets them through in number 22. And, well, enough of a gap there to feel safe from Tem for now, at least. The GT4 class here. Definitely seen itself squeezed together in multiple different areas. But Niels Gore's left the pit lane. Alex Gull has just left it as well. So as they both come out, onto clear circuits. So they've got plenty of space to operate with. And now has Stuart Reynolds timed this right? By staying out, and the fact that he does have some Porsche Cup cars around him, has he let them go past him and not lost any time, or has this potentially cost him the time? Because we would understand that perhaps he's been doing all the fuel saving he can behind Gull for the opening half of this race, but there's still more time to be said. And right now, for Reynolds, we do know as well this Mercedes much more aggressive in its fuel usage compared to Gull's McLaren. That does seem to be one of the lightest on its fuel consumption. So Reynolds might have been able to bring parity, but this lap affecting any more he does after it before he pits, they're going to feel as though they're going to have to be the fastest laps he's done on worn tyres in order to be able to see if he can make the leapfrog on the overcut strategy. But looking to Simon Povey, he puts another lap on in the Porsche Cup class, now going on to lap 17. So still going deeper and deeper into this one with Idris Abdullahi and Edwards behind, albeit there is your second place man, your third place driver. Well, there he is briefly in the rear of the camera shot, and then we do pan back to him just ahead of John Bailiff by 2 seconds. Bailiff right now sets a personal best, so does Edwards. So these two still finding some pace out there. And then you do go back to Stuart Bickley, the 5th place runner, who has broken away from Rob Sharp, and Sharp does have the company of Gary Toole right behind him. But speaking of company, Kim Such and Ollie Carwadine, the two Oris racing drivers, making their way down the start for this straight. They're going to be fighting over 10th place here. That is for position. It's not on strategy. Through that left-hander of one. Well, Such right now in that dirty air. You can see having to fight with the understeer of the car, but does a good job in doing so. And getting ready to come in down to turn number 3. Braking nice and early there. Doesn't go for the lunge. Instead, just decides to stay behind his teammate. But of course, his rival on the circuit today. Carwadine right now runs a bit deep there at turn number 5. That's going to give Such a lot of momentum to gain on here, albeit he was a bit too far back there to really seize upon it, but he's got to take some confidence here. He can pressure the man in front of him. Meanwhile, into the pit lane has come Daniel Huntley off camera. So Huntley's the first Porsche Cup car to come into the pits for a strategic stop. Meanwhile, it's all happening in the pit lane. There is Alex Gull, and here is Stuart Reynolds. So Alex Gull has returned to lead this race in GT4 after Reynolds has had a relatively similar stop. In fact, he was 300ths longer in the pit lane by comparison with Gull in terms of stationary time, and Stuart Reynolds has lost out there. So Alex Gull has retaken the lead by 2 seconds. Reynolds has now got the work to do. Meanwhile, as all the GT4 pit stops are being completed, Niels Gore is still ahead of Thomas Fisher. Thomas Fisher still ahead of Matthias Tem. Tem has fallen back by the best part of a couple of seconds there. In fact, 3 seconds was the delta between the two of them. So Fisher has opened up that gap. And we do have Thomas Pugh behind him by 5 seconds. He's now ahead of Andrew Jones. And in fact, I do believe Andrew Jones has pretty much stayed exactly where he was before the pit stop. Daniel Osler is 4 seconds behind, still carrying on his way and gaining some time in the pit lane. And you have Matthew Croft and Mark Johnson completing that top 10, with Heinz Mayer emerging from the pit lane with Ralph Mayer behind him. And in fact, Mayer having a Heinz Mayer I should say, let's keep in mind it's 2 brothers here. Well, Heinz right now definitely having the longer stop, and I do believe changing more tyres by comparison with Ralph Mayer. So Ralph decided 1 set of tyres is enough. Meanwhile, Heinz Mayer decided he needs a few more. But meanwhile, in the pit lane as well, John Bailiff has decided to stay out, so he's going to go an 18th lap in the Porsche Cup car. That's incredible, whereas everyone else has not been able to do so. And well, Simon Povey leaves the pit lane. Where's Idris Abdullahi? He is right behind him here as we ride on board with Idris Abdullahi, albeit the gap, of course, will become a little bit more pronounced now they go off the pit limiter line. But as they cut their way back on through, well, right now, the Frenchman here, much more aggressive on pit lane exit compared to Povey. That's legal, I do believe. He was within the pit lane exit line, and now, well, he's trying to attack immediately here. He wants this place. So a pit stop has done nothing to slow the temperament of the satellite racing driver. But right now, is he just going to stay in orbit at this position, or is he going to be able to land it? We'll have to see as Povey gets a better run through Big Bend and up towards the hairpin. But gap is still 4 attempts here. And right now, well, Idris Abdullahi, if he's given a doorway in, he will certainly take it. And Povey knows that. And right now, he's got to pump out the laps as quickly as he possibly can. Elsewhere, further down in the pit lane, we have Ryan Penny emerging. So does Kim Such. So does Ben Sieber very shortly. So all these drivers right now making that pit stop. Daniel Huntley, meanwhile, the first to pit. He pitted a lap earlier compared to his peers. But what does this mean for him in the number 97? Well, he might be getting closer to Sieber at this rate. Sieber is still being serviced at the moment. And well, Sieber has just completed his stop. There will be fuel going into the car. And we do see the wonderful sunset. We do see Huntley make his way in out. But as he does so, where is Sieber in all this? He's still heading down pit lane. He's past the limiter line now. So Steve will gain some speed here. Huntley will be close. He'll be hoping that this is going to be enough as he makes his way through Genderby and Bend. But the answer is no, it's not quite. In the end, he is now the best part of what is 6 tenths behind. But Huntley's still got a chance. He can still go fighting as the final stopper in the Porsche Cup class comes on down pit lane. Here is John Bailiff. He's gone 1 lap longer than everybody else from 4th place in the running order. And right now, understandably, he will be very happy with that. And Ollie Colberdine as well. We've got to give him a shout out. He's going 18 laps, so he's been able to save the extra fuel, much like Bailiff. And the number 14 driver will be coming on in. And we will see him most likely drop a bit further down the order. But will he be ahead of the likes of Such and Penny when this is all said and done? Those were his target drivers to beat, essentially, through the strategy. Well, into the pits he goes. Bailiff still being serviced. Where's Povey? There is Povey going on past. There's Idris Abdullahi. Then where is Guy Edwards? He's now making his way out of the final corner. Bailiff heading up towards Genderby and Bend. We look to the blimp camera. There is Bailiff going up to speed now. And well, it's going to be close. Edwards there on the inside. This is going to be very tight. I think Bailiff's jumped him. Yes, John Bailiff has jumped ahead of Guy Edwards in the pit stops. So that's a change down strategy. Whereas most have stayed where they are, have got close or perhaps a little bit more distant. John Bailiff has been able to use the extra lap in the opening stint to get the lead over Edwards in the battle for 3rd place. But Guy Edwards right now so close. Also, he's got warmer tyres at this point. Edwards, of course, had 1 more lap back out there, whereas Bailiff has now got to get himself warmed back up. And immediately coming on down there, Bailiff goes defensive in the middle of the road. Edwards, meanwhile, gets himself to the inside. Bailiff tries to squeeze him. Under the brakes they go. Edwards is not going to back out of this. He's got the space to do it. And in the end, Guy Edwards goes all in for it. And he makes it happen. But now, Bailiff's going to try and come back at him here as they make the way through Fangio Bend. And Edwards, I'm sure, will return the favour in kind, which is giving him enough space to exist, but nothing more than that as they go 2 wide through turn number 9. The apex camera showing the velocity at which they come through, and Bailiff trying to look around the outside here. Edwards door to door and coming out of the corner and up towards turn 11, 12 and 13. Can Edwards now hang it all the way around the outside to get the inside of Tower Bend? He's there. He's going to be on the brakes, but Bailiff right now is throwing everything at this. He wants to get this move done. Sideways Bailiff goes. It's oversteer there, and that might be over that battle for now. A small error for John Bailiff, and suddenly Guy Edwards is able to hold on to 3rd. But what a brilliant battle between these two. Absolutely on the limit, but absolute respect between the two of them as well. You couldn't ask for more firm racing than that in Porsche Cup cars. And well, John Bailiff now knows the challenge is on. That big slide there cost him. Can he recover? Can he regroup? And can he go for it once again? He's looking for one of those podium medals, I can tell you that. That's the only thing on the line today is a medal if you finish on the podium. And right now, as Bailiff charges onwards, well, Guy Edwards will be thinking to himself, right, I can't break away from him. We're set for the fight now for what will be another 12 laps of racing. So remember, this race is done on laps. It's not done on time. So we will be going the full 180 kilometres for what will be these Porsche Cup cars. As they charged away onwards, right now John Bailiff has got more work to do. But whilst he tries to find the move here into Genderby and Bend, will he be able to do so? And they do have a little bit of GT4 traffic in front of him. It's going to be Simon Clifton right up the road. Meanwhile, we do see Martin Kenyon and Ralph Mayer going side by side here. That's going to be Kenyon around the outside coming down towards the hairpin. And Ralph Mayer in the end does not fight it under braking. I don't think he's got as much confidence in the braking distance in his Porsche compared to Kenyon has in his McLaren. And things there will switch around. So a smooth move there from Martin Kenyon to get the move done on Ralph Mayer in the run through a Big Bend. But back to the front of the field, these guys catching up to him. Povey and Idris Abdullahi still 9 tenths between the two. There is no separation at the moment other than that limitation of a second. And meanwhile, Guy Edwards still under pressure from John Bailiff, and only what was a lap ago they were fighting so hard through here. And meanwhile, Bailiff now knowing he's got to try and find a way to get the attack on again. Rob Sharp is 12 seconds behind, so there's no worry for Bailiff about pressure coming from a gentleman behind. Instead, he can just focus on delivering these corners. As I believe I'm hearing in my ear that Martin Kenyon's had a bit of an off track, and that's given the place back to Ralph Mayer in the GT4 class. We'll try and see if we can get replay of that in short order. But right now, your British driver here for Win It or Bin It Racing glued to the back of Edwards, albeit shaking around there. Both drives fighting with oversteer, and well, understandably, they've put fuel in the car. They have not changed any tyres, and that lack of changing tyres now becomes a whole new threat because you are on a tyre compound that is being worn down little by little. On the less grip you have, well, the more you're on the limit, the more the oversteer starts to kick in. And of course, these cars, they are driven with oversteer. They are driven with the throttle pedal, these Porsche 92 Cup cars. But right now, who's got the right balance on the throttle pedal? It looks to be Bailiff coming out onto the Auburn straight, going up the inside here. Here we go. It's a drag race, but Sunset Bend awaits them as the sun continues to set here in the US state of Florida, and on the inside goes Bailiff. Edwards on the outside, meanwhile, lets it go initially, but he'll have the better run now. Onto the start finish straight, or will he? As he gets very close there, Bailiff runs a little bit wide, runs all the way to the tyre stacks. Meanwhile, in front of them, that is going to be none other than what will be the car of Martin Kenyon right in front of him. Right now, they're both approaching him. Kenyon stays on his racing line here. Bailiff looks up the inside. He's going to use the GT4 driver here as a bit of a buffer. Meanwhile, Edwards takes his time. He knows that Kenyon's not going to hook his line all the way in, and therefore, as they make the one through, it's no change at all. So smart driving there from both, and Kenyon as well, not step on each other's toes. But Bailiff definitely right now eager to break away. He wants to try and throw whatever barriers he can in the way of Edwards, because Edwards right now is refusing to give in, and we are back to how they were when they came out of the pit lane. Only 2 laps to go. And, well, I wonder whether Edwards is going to go for it again here. 2 attempts is the gap. Coming down towards the braking zone this time. He thinks about it. He keeps us guessing, and he doesn't go for it, does Edwards. I wonder where he's trying to lure Bailiff into a false sense of security here. Perhaps he's trying to say to him, when am I going to go for it, John? Your guess is as good as mine. Well, right now, pushing, keep your rival guessing, but sometimes you have to go for it unless you're trying to psych your rival out. And, well, overtakes have happened through that, to be fair. But where can Edwards go for it? That's unconventional, you may ask. Well, one place he can potentially look for it is coming through turn 10 in towards 13 here, but he's got to have a really good run into this corner in order to be able to get up the inside or hook it on the outside, although inside line is highly preferable. Otherwise, it would be Sunset his next attacking opportunity, because, of course, coming in towards Bishop very shortly, and then Le Mans Bend, you can go for the move, but then the Auburn Straight really will nullify any places you gain and put you at the risk of being attacked in towards the final corner of the lap. So it really is now swings and roundabouts between these two. The gap to Ben Idris Abdullahi, the battle for second and first up the road, is now 12 seconds. Their fighting has cost them dearly, but to be fair, it's given us some absolutely incredible entertainment. And when you're fighting for a spot on that podium, well, it's understandable as to why. But as they make their way down the back straight for now, well, we've got some drama, ladies and gentlemen, because we have got a meatball flag for Stuart Bickley. His car's in pieces. The straight line's over what will be Bishop and Le Mans. He's got a car that's got to come into the pit lane straight away. And we said we've got some replays to bring you some big moments, and we're going to bring you them now, starting what happened to Simon Clifton a couple of laps ago. And this was Simon Clifton in his GT4, making his way in towards Sunset Bend, went all in, carried all the speed, and as he made his way through the right hander, oh, goodness me! And will Simon Povey and Idris Abdullahi both having to react there to Clifton spinning out on the apex of his own volition and hitting the barrier as well. That will not help the front right suspension at all for the GT4 driver from Axis Simsport, but he carried on. We then had this for Martin Kenyon only moments later. This was your McLaren 570S GT4 driver heading in towards what was Tower Bend after passing Ralph Mayer. Lost the rear of the car coming through the corner, and Ralph Mayer took the place back, and Kenyon found the grass and then quickly found his way back onto the tarmac. But then we had this huge moment only moments to go for Stuart Bickley. What exactly happened for him to get the meatball flag? So Bickley was making his way. In fact, this was the off-track that preceded it, so Bickley's already had a moment with the wall. Where has he had it? I suspect this is going to be at none other than Tower Bend. Trying to go around the outside there of Clifton. Did so. Oh, my good Lord. Taking way too much apex curve there. The car bouncing around. And in the end, the passenger in his own car. He made the mistake at turn number 12. And in the end, by the time he got to turn 13, there was no way back for him other than just trawling to the pit lane. Indeed, Stuart Bickley has made his way into the pit since that, and we come back to your live racing in good time. And, well, definitely these high curbs here, dangerous for any car, particularly these Porsche Cup cars, as right now, well, Guy Edwards and John Bailiff continue to fight, and, well, in fact, these two drivers pushing away onwards. In fact, we have had a change where Edwards has got back ahead of John Bailiff, and, well, we haven't quite seen how that's happened. We were busy in replay mode, but we will get a replay of that when we can. But Edwards now back into third place then. It's looking one way, then the other on Hines Mountain. I wonder whether our GT4 driver there was wondering, well, which way are you going to go, Guy? And in the end, as they came down that run where he picked the inside into Bishop Bend, but kept everybody wondering what was going on. I think Guy Edwards right now trying to be a bit unpredictable here in order to shake off Bailiff. But the problem is Bailiff right now, well, he is inevitable here. He refuses to go away. Not that we ever want him to go away, be fair. And coming through the long right-hander. And now onto the start for this straight. Well, they've still got another 8 laps of this to go. And, well, to be fair, if they carry on like this for another 8 laps, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going to give him first. Their race or my voice at this point. Place your bets now. But coming through turn number 1, John Bailiff now back on the attack here as they come through Gender Bean. Next up is Mark Johnson in front of them, and the Aston Martin driver here, well, he might find himself right in the midst of it. He is going to go deep there into turn number 3, so therefore he sees them coming and says, you know what, I don't want any part to play in this. Well, as they roll the way out to turn number 5 there, Edwards rolled a bit deep, and I think that might have been by design, but Bailiff had the better exit either way. And down up towards what we turn 7 at the moment, and we've been in racing driver here still Trying everything out. This looks to the inside from very far back there. That's more posturing. That's to try and fake out a move. But then almost outbrakes himself in towards the hairpin. But Bailiff right now, you can feel the confidence is exuding from this onboard in the fact that he's able to do that, go deep into the corner and still be all over the back of Edwards like a bad rash. Bailiff right now, he's got the pace, he's got the bravery. Now he's just got to find the right place to do it here. He's got to pick it off the list. But through turn number 10, no way in for Bailiff at the moment. Something surely has got to give soon. We've also got some battles starting to build for the top 5 of the GT4 class, ladies and gentlemen, so we will come to those in short order. Don't you worry, we are keeping a close eye on them, particularly for the lead, and also the fight for none other than what is third place, where it's Niels Core, Thomas Fischer, and Matthias Tem now, all within 2 seconds of each other, if that. It is getting very close for the podium spots in GT4. It's all coming together on strategy, as much as it's coming together for this battle for P3 in the Porsche Cup class, and Povey and Idris Abdullahi are still 2 seconds apart in the lead of it. So we are coming down to narrow margins right towards the end. But who exactly is going to be the winner of the marginal margins? That's the question. Coming down the Allman Straight, Edwards immediately cuts over there, trying to break the toe for a brief moment. Also saying to Bailiff, you can go to the inside, but you're going to have to go to the very inside wall if you want this. But he wants it as Bailiff, so here we go. 2 wide into sunset. Now Edwards immediately gives up the place, rolls deep. Does he roll too deep there? The answer is yes, he does to a degree. I think he wanted the switchback, but in fact Edwards, by going that deep, initially lost out some pace, but now he will pick up a huge slipstream here coming down towards Gender B. And does he now go back to the inside into the corner? Knows the answer. He does back off there. I think a smart call. Bailiff was positioning centre right of the road and saying essentially to Edwards, look, I'm not going to make this easy for you if you want it, and the tighter you go to that apex when you're too wide, of course the bigger the risk is that either you bleed all your speed or suddenly you're making contact with the driver on the outside. And normally if you're on the inside and you make that contact, it's going to have the shooting book thrown right at you, and it's a heavy book, I can tell you, SRM. We're coming down through turn of 6 and towards 7. Bailiff right now find himself in the similar position that Edwards did only months ago, which is gap, 2 attempts and closing. Edwards looks to the inside, but no way in this time. Meanwhile, as much as we love watching that battle, we need to look to the battle for third place here in the GT4 class. There's Core, Fischer, and Tem, the 2 satellite racing cars ahead of the Fury Simsport Mercedes. It's Mustangs versus Mercedes, or in other words, it's the battle of the V8. The German one being 6.3 litres in capacity. Meanwhile, the 2 in front, 5 litres by comparison. But either way, everyone wins when it's a V8 day, and as they come charging through turns 15 and 16. Right now, Thomas Fischer seems to be looking very vulnerable, as Tem meanwhile riding all over the back of him like a bad rash. Back on the dashboard camera we go there. The sun has definitely set now. We've got what is the equinox hours of racing here, and will these drivers continue to push each other along? But what a battle it's been. The Dutchman right now hoping that perhaps he's going to be able to look to the inside here. He's going to go for it. That's a very far back for Matthias Tem. He goes all in, and once he does so there, triggers off the anti-lock brakes as well in terms of the flashing lights, and will come through turn number 70. My good lord, that's a lunge and a half. That was from a different postcode entirely there, and well, I don't think that was done by postal mail. I think that was done by airmail there as he made his way on through. But here comes Fischer back at him, and Tem immediately says no you don't. He defends as late as possible to the inside, and right now Thomas Fischer, well, for all lack of confidence he had in turn number 17, I can tell you now he's got plenty of confidence back. I think that's stirred into action there. Tem's absolutely huge move, and we'll come through turn number 2 and 3 right now. Well, Niels Core will be grateful here for the buffer. However, he won't be grateful for the fact it's not his teammate who's giving him the buffer behind, but instead now it's Matthias Tem who comes on through, and now up towards the hairpin they go. But these drivers, meanwhile, staying close, keeping each other honest. And on the very front of the field here are your Porsche Cup leaders. Simon Povey right now making his way around the outside there of the Mercedes. That being the Mercedes from Axis Simsport and none other than, I do believe, what is the car there? Thomas Pugh, the 6th place runner. But Povey still having enough space to work with, because Ben Idris Abdullahi keeping him honest every step of the way. But of course, finding the traffic just as much as his rival. And that traffic giving and taking an equal measure. And Povey did have an off track only months ago that cost him a bit of time, but he has since got that time back. Meanwhile, back to the front of the GT4 class, well, it's Garwin Reynolds, and of course Stuart Reynolds has caught back up over the last couple of laps. He has made haste, he has made progress, and now they are exchanging lap times once again, much like they were in the first into this race. So Garwin Reynolds here, they could not have scripted this whatsoever as they come through the latter half of the lap. These two absolutely equal here today, even when the strategy swung in favour of goal by the best part of 2 seconds. Reynolds has been able to catch up, but how much more has he got in that Mercedes to be able to try and make the pass right at the end? That is going to be the challenge that confronts him. from them, ladies and gents, we come back to a replay of that move by Matthias Tem on what was Thomas Fischer only moments ago. Here was the exterior camera, and well, you can see the door was not open. Fischer went to turn in, and Tem just said, right, it's now or never, and he got it stopped there. But what a way to do it. Had to lean very hard on the brakes in order to get it done, and then Fischer, of course, trying to the comeback. And down the start-finish straight here as they made the way upwards towards what was going to be a bend. But the problem was that as much as he wanted it, Tem wanted it even more and went incredibly defensive there. And that's how they stayed. So a brilliant battle between those two, and meanwhile, Gall versus Reynolds here. No delta between them right now. In fact, that gap has been completely eroded away. And well, for these two drivers, they are a couple laps down compared to leaders. So at this point, they are now approximately what is about 3 to 4 laps away from the finish. Because when we do see the Porsche Cup class finish the race, we will see our GT4s finish the race on their current lap behind the Porsche Cup cars. They will not be allowed to do the full 30 laps. They will do whatever lap they are on, plus the one of the Porsche Cup car that has lapped them at the very front. But as the Frenchman here of Gall holds on for now, well, Reynolds, of course, he knows that this McLaren, it has a very good balance of characteristics. It's not all about the handling, even though it's mid-engine rear drive. It does have some very good acceleration and also a very high top end speed, but it takes longer to get there. And that's what Mercedes driver's got to do. He's got to have the better run out of the corners onto these longer straights and be in the draft to be able to make that progress. But through turns 11, 12 and 13 right now, you can see these two so equidistant to each other. Every braking zone, it is identical to a T, and that's why they really are at the very front of this group, and that's why they're 2 stars here in the Sim Racing Magazine community as they head down. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about some of the other drivers shortly, but before we do that, we are staying with this because Reynolds gets a really good run there for Bishop. I think he was considering going for the move there coming into 15, because that just looks so quick by comparison. And now going in towards Le Mans corner, well, this might be there. Reynolds is going to go for the move because he does seem to be just that little bit bolder this time. But as they head down the straight, will there be a change? We have had a change of camera. Daniel Oslo just got ahead of Andrew Jones for 7th place in GT4. We will give you a replay of that when we can. But right now it's a peak there from Reynolds. But is it going to be all or nothing here? No, it's not. Gall right now just holds him at bay. Coming on around, understandably with the Porsche Cup class leaders coming, well, will they catch them before turn 1? No, they won't. As Gall runs all the way to the barrier there. He gets very close. Well, here comes Reynolds then. This has got to be his chance. We'll go grazing about. That's cost him 2 miles an hour onto this straight. Reynolds goes around the outside. Now it's Gall goes defensive here. We've been waiting for this for a long time, and it finally starts to happen. And well, 2 attempts on exit. It's going to be Reynolds now with even more speed. Coming up towards turn 3. Onto the brakes they'll go. In towards the left-hander and on into the inside goes Reynolds. Gall's going to try and hold it around the outside, but Stuart Reynolds does squeeze ahead, and Stuart Reynolds takes the lead this race in GT4, and with the leader of the Porsche Cup class coming right up behind him, there is Simon Povey with Benny just Abdullah. He 2.5 seconds back. Now can Reynolds do anything here to buy himself some space? Can he get the Porsche Cup leader to split them? We can see Gall immediately coming over to the inside, and Povey swaps between the two, and now onto the brakes they go, and well, this is going to bring Reynolds right back to Gall, because you can see Povey there having to take a tighter line, and therefore Reynolds not able to turn in immediately, but having to bleed a bit more speed before the apex. So this is staying very tight between them as we see Tem, Court and Fischer still together, and Matthias Tem has found his way past Niels Core off camera. So we've got a few overtakes to take a quick look back at, and ladies and gentlemen, let's do so quickly because we haven't got long left in this race. We start off with Daniel Osler versus Andrew Jones. This was coming in towards Tower, and in the end Jones took a lot of apex curb on entry there. That sent him deep, and Daniel Osler in the end got the better exit out the corner, and it was a drag race in towards Bishop before they got this done. Also on the outside and moved ahead just about, and then we had this for Matthias Tem on Niels Court only moments later. And this was a drag race down the start-finish straight in towards turn 1. And Tem on the inside there. And, well, 2 wide they entered. And did they come out 2 wide? The answer was not quite. It was in the end. Tem's to take. And Score running a little bit deeper by comparison. He was back alongside into the braking zone for turn 3. A small tap between the two of them as well. But respectful racing. And well, Tem got the move done in the end as they made the way in towards turn 5. So it's all chop and change right now on the podium for GT4. Reynolds now your leader, head of Alex Gall and Matthias Tem. It's a Fury Simsport double podium heading this way, albeit there still might be a question or two to say about that one. We also have had an unfortunate retirement for Daniel Huntley from this race. He has officially retired now, the 13th runner in the Porsche Cup class. We have lost 2 Porsche Cup cars, but we still have 12 going, and we have coincidentally lost 2 of our GT4s in the form of none other than Daniel Perry and also Lee Berridge. And Andy Marsden right now is in the pit lane, and I think he's been in there for a little bit of time. It might be a 3rd retirement, in fact, there for the Sim Racing Magazine driver. from everyone who has retired in this race. We've still got plenty of drivers out there. It's been great to see so many push on, even when it has gone wrong for some. And right now, let's not forget the fact we still got the question of, is it going to be John Bailiff or Guy Edwards on that third spot of the Porsche Cup podium? As whilst Povey and Idris Abdullahi, they are enough distance from each other right now. They look relatively settled, apart from what could be the exhibitionism of a little bit of GT4 traffic. Well, Bailiff and Edwards do not have that problem, at least for now. And as they make their way down the stretch, Edwards looking up the inside here versus Bailiff, but he just looks at it, he teases it out. He's getting Bailiff to try and, well, he's trying to get Bailiff to make a mistake then. Bailiff did go very sideways down corner exit, but intriguingly, Edwards not ready to pounce him. I wonder whether both drivers here are really struggling with tyre life right now, and Edwards is essentially, he hasn't got enough rubber on his wheels on those slick tyres to be able to make a forceful move. What he's having to do instead is just try and get Bailiff to overdrive the car at this point. It is a valid approach to forcing an overtake. Just get your rival to make a mistake of their own and you can just sail on through. It seems as though both right now are really struggling. As Bailiff again sideways there, coming out to Tower Bend. He's having to drive really hard to make sure he holds on to that third. And understandably, Guy Edwards here doing the exact same to make sure he's under that constant pressure. But neither driver wanting to wilt here. This may all just come down to a simple mistake between one of them right at the end as they bounced away over the curbs in towards Le Mans Bend for the 28th time of asking. Well, only 2 more laps to go after this one, but look at the run out of Le Mans that Edwards has got here. And Bailiff right now, as much he tries to come across, Edwards is already there, and this is going to be straightforward surely now with the side draft as well. Edwards will move into third place. Bailiff backs off on the outside there. Now can he go for the switchback? Can he go all the way down the outside? What is Bailiff going to do in return? Well, Edwards finds a face for the GT4 leader. This is not good news for Edwards as he now has to swap the seats. Oh, it's into the barrier there for Bailiff. He tries to go around the outside of Stuart Reynolds. It doesn't work out, and Guy Edwards will take that third place. John Bailiff in the end, that could have been far, far worse, and also could have been disaster for Stuart Reynolds, whose son, he has had his gap from a whole second over Alex goal slashed in half right now, and understandably, I don't think he realised that Bailiff was going to cut to the outside there. Neither driver expected the other to do what they did, and well, Stuart Reynolds right now, the GT4 leader, just trying to hold on, as is Bailiff trying to hold on to the back of Edwards, but that might be it for that battle, unless now Bailiff can absolutely pull off the mother of all penultimate laps. Whilst all this is happening, Niels Core is still trying to chase down Matthias 10 for that final spot on the GT4 podium. And well, off camera, we have had Martin Kenyon try to go battling with Jules Gardner. But in the end, I think Kenyon's lost out to a degree on that one. And in fact, with an off track, he has fallen a long way back, even though he did originally make the move. As our drivers right now, they'll definitely be feeling tired, they'll be feeling exhausted, but right now for Guy Edwards, there is no rest, because coming up towards turn number 10, here's Bailiff once again. He's going to give it another go, is John Bailiff, even with contact with the wall. That's not going to stop him. Tries to go around the outside to inside here, coming into Collier Bend. And well, this is brave from Bailiff. Keep it clean, guys. We're absolutely loving this as they make the way up towards 13. And will Bailiff now over the back of Edwards, no way in. Looking back for the rear then of your third place driver. The car's bouncing around there with the transition from asphalt piece to asphalt piece as they get ready to go back into the concrete. They're not quite there yet. And well, right now as we say hello to Most Wanted, well, the 55 driver here doing everything right. But what can Bailiff do to find one more move? We will see. Coming through into towards Le Mans this time. Well, Bailiff too far back surely at the moment as our leaders get ready to go onto a final lap of this circuit. It will be just over an hour of racing to complete the 180 kilometres of Sebring in the Porsche Cup class. And right now Bailiff 6 tenths back. That's too far back this time, but he's got one more chance this one final lap, because the white flag waves and there is Simon Povey going onto the final tour of the circuit today. 3 seconds ahead of Ben Idris Abdullahi, in comfortable position right now for the lead this race. And meanwhile for Stuart Reynolds, your GT4 leader, he's only got one more lap to go as well, with the lead Porsche Cup car right now having triggered the white flag. Reynolds knows that after this lap it is one more tour. That's all he's got to do. Keep the gap to goal to 1 second or more and he will be safe. If he gets any closer, he may be at risk right at the end. Let's also talk a little bit quickly about Daniel Osler versus Andrew Jones. And right now Andrew Jones chasing after Osler as much as he possibly can for that 7th place in the GT4 class. These two have been absolutely at it all through the race right now, albeit Jones has come off worse as Osler has gradually picked up the pace over the distance, so we'll have to keep an eye on what's happening between them. But for now, let's come back to the Edwards-Bailiff battle, the real big battle on the circuit as they come down into the braking zone here. And this time Bailiff looking up the inside. Edwards goes to turn in. Bailiff in the end, he's 50-50. He thinks about it, he thinks not about it in the end. And well, Edwards right now playing him at his own game and saying to him, well, I'm going to turn in, and if you want to make contact with me, we can both go to the stewards room afterwards. But Bailiff right now definitely playing the game of being an advocate, or what is none of an antagonist here. It's what you've got to do in order to try and take a place of someone who is so cemented in third, is you've really got to try and get under their skin. But when Guy Edwards is so resilient, he's seen it all. He is not going to fall for it what at all. And go through into that right hand. A little bit of traffic in front of them. That is going to be the machinery of Martin Kenyon. However, it's going to come at an opportune time here coming before Bishop Quarter, so it will not affect them, and they have no more GT4 cars between them now and the rest of the race distance. They will complete this final lap now purely battling with each other. And Bailiff, they're very close coming in towards Le Mans. Well, that's the pace. That's the place where you get so much momentum. And now coming out to the right-hander, will Edwards be able to hold on? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to tell you, but we do need to come back to the front of the field because this man makes it out the final quarter. He put it on pole by 3/10, and in the end, he's going to win it by just over 3 seconds. It's Simon Povey who takes victory in our special event, and then Ben Idris Abdullah, he rounds off the run to runner-up. Who will take third, meanwhile? I think it is going to be Guy Edwards in the end. He's halved, he's halved, and he's blown away the competition for John Bailiff. He will hold on for that third place spot, the final spot on the Porsche Cup podium ahead of Bailiff. Oh, what's happening in the rear of the picture? That's Martin Kenyon going on around, and that's a big spin there right before the finish line, a black flag for him. Meanwhile, Rob Sharp makes his way through the final couple course behind the GT4 leaders, and in their brilliant battle to line as Martin Kenyon reverses it across the finish. Stuart Reynolds will take GT4 victory just ahead of Alex Gall, and then we'll have a bit of time before we get to the third place finishers. In fact, here they come. Matthias Tem right now, he had to find a way through past the two satellite racing machines of Niels Core and Thomas Fisher, but he's done it, and Fury Simsport will make it a double podium with him third in the GT4s, just ahead of Niels Core and Fisher. And then we will see a bit further back Thomas Pugh hold off Daniel Osler's late charge to finish 6th in class, and then Andrew Jones will be just behind them in 8th place. Between them all there, we have seen a couple other cars coming through, including none other than Chris Jennings in the Porsche Cup class, 7th in class there as he calls it on down for Axis Simsport. Ryan Penny as well, he's completed his race. Oliver Carbadine just behind him, enjoying the run to 9th place there as he shakes the car from left to right. We will very shortly see Matthew Croft come across the line in the 113, 9th for your GT4s, in a bit of a lonely race for him, but comes to be ahead of Mark Johnson, as we also do have coming through Kim Such very shortly. In fact, there is Such making his way along. I think he's run out of fuel as actually Kim Such, because Ben Sieber's going to take the place off him right at the end here. Meanwhile, in 10th in the GT4 class, it's going to be Mark Johnson there for Track Mouse Racing in the Aston Martin. It was an interesting gamble to pick the Aston Martin today, and well, he finished right in the midst of the GT4 class. He'll be pleased with that, I bet. And Heinz Mao then coming through in a Mustang. He survives, it's there in the Oris Racing, sponsored by Romeworthy Machine, to bring on home best of the spot in GT4 11th. And then we do see Ben Sieber stealing that 10th place at the end from a fuel struggling Kim Sarch. He makes it to the finish line just about in that 11th place in Porsche Cup. And well, after that, ladies and gents, we do have finishes as there as well for none other than Ralph Mayer just behind. And I do believe your final finisher of this race, as will be classified on the graphics, will be Simon Clifton, who comes home in 13th in class, with Giles Gardner, meanwhile, having already finished his race and cooling down here in 15th place in the GT4s, a further lap adrift. Goodness me, what an ending to the race in the end. It all started to calm down a little bit before the pit stops, and as soon as those pit stops played out, we saw it really come back to life. But in a Porsche Cup, Simon Povey, there he is parked up, and he'll be absolutely ecstatic to know that here today, he was the driver to beat, and nobody could beat him. And Stuart Reynolds, meanwhile, well, it took a lot of effort, but as he glides his way on the grass there to do some donuts, albeit that's not the way you do donuts, I don't think. And well, as the number one driver parks it up, with Matthias Tem there following him, it's a double podium for Fury Simsport in GT4, but for Stuart Reynolds in the number one, he's come from second to get the job done, but he's enjoyed an absolutely brilliant battle with Alex Gold every step of the way. And that's what we always love to see. But as our drivers cool on down, ladies and gentlemen, well, what we also love to see is the race results, and we're going to start with your Porsche Cup class. So as we can see, after 180 kilometres of Sebring here today in this special event hosted by Sim Racing Magazine and sponsored by Oris Digital on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, Simon Povey put it on pole, and in the end held on for taller and taller motorsport, and he was the tallest of them all today when it came to the test of driving the highly technical German machine. Ben Idris Abdullah, he's second place there for Satellite Racing, 4 seconds behind, but all the way through the race, the two swapped time back and forth, and in the end, with a little bit of assistance from traffic and picking the right time to pit, Povey was able to gain the upper hand. But nothing should be taken from the pair. Indeed, the GT4 was playing fair with them both, and they really kept us guessing every step of the way. Guy Edwards and John Bailiff as well what a story between those two. Half a second it was at the finish, but it was so close throughout the pit stops all the way through to the very end, and it could have gone either way, but the privateer in the end held on to the third place spot, with Win It or Bin It Races John Bailiff taking home fourth place. Then we did see the Scotsman of Rob Sharp taking fifth there for Bruce Racing, just ahead of Gary Toole, the other Toole and Toole Motorsport giant, enjoying a good run today. And there was Chris Jennings there in seventh place at Axis Simsport, ahead of Ryan Penny, with the RS Racing driver ahead of his teammate Olo Kawadeen. And then round off that top 10, Ben Sieber, who just brought that top 10 home in the end, ahead of Kim Such, who was running out of fuel just before the finish line. It was best of the rest there for the RS Racing driver of Such, ahead of DCW Racing Stuart Bickley, who was a lap down but enjoyed himself out there. And unfortunately, we did have some premature retirements from Daniel Huntley and also an early retirement from Paul Goffin after damage picked up on the opening couple of laps. Unfortunately for the Sim Racing Magazine driver, the car could not carry on. Then we come to your GT4 class. And as we can see here in the GT4s, it was Stuart Reynolds who brought home the win for Fury Simsport, but he had to work hard for it, and in the end, a critical move late on in the race versus Annex Gold was the difference, with the chicane and Apex Vistas driver not having a response when he needed it most. However, Gold did have the option on strategy to save some more fuel, and indeed he made it work in the McLaren, but unfortunately the pace was in the hands of Reynolds all the way through. Matthias Tem took home third place, a further 13 seconds behind, but he found himself in a three-way fight for that third place spot, with the Fury Simsport driver being able to outpace the satellite racing machines of Niels Court and Thomas Fisher to the close, and that's how your top 5 completed. Thomas Pugh brought home 6th place there for Axis Simsport, a further 6 seconds behind, but 2 seconds ahead of Daniel Osler, who chased him in the early stage of the race, and the Fury Simsport driver also had the close company of Andrew Jones throughout for DCW Racing. Then we saw Matthew Croft take 9th place there for Axis Simsport, the best part of almost 20 seconds clear of Mark Johnson for Trackmouse Racing. And then from the Aston Martin driver, it was none other than Heinz Mayer who took 11th best of the rest, with Ralph Mayer there, his brother, finishing a bit further behind in 12th. Then it was Axis Simsport Simon Clifton in 13th place, ahead of lapdown Martin Kenyon, who finished the race, albeit in style, by reversal across the line there after his spin on the final corner of the final lap. And the DXT Motorsports driver was ahead of Gilles Gardner, with the Sim Racing Magazine driver being the last to finish the race. And then we did have retirements for Andrew Marsden, also Daniel Perry and Lee Berridge. But ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional results. And well, that doesn't quite conclude our broadcast for today, because whilst the circuit has definitely gone silent, indeed all our drivers now will be getting ready to pack up the cars, indeed make the flights home to wherever they hail from, well, we're going to have an opportunity to catch up with some of them perhaps in the next 5 minutes, because we're going to take a bit of a breather. But when we do come back, it will be time for some post-race interviews our drivers. Don't go anywhere, you want to miss them. We will see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's kick off our post-race interviews. And we're going to be coming straight to the heart of the excitement of the final stint of this race of the Porsche Cup class, because we're going to be speaking to none other than John Bailiff, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, John, and well, what an incredible end to the race. I know you didn't quite get the podium and you took fourth instead, but you had a lot of fun out there between yourself and Guy Edwards. Oh, John, do we have you now? Well, we do apologise, ladies and gents. I think John's just having some slight technical issues with technology. Just bear with me. Well, I can hear you now, John. Can you hear me? We do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, but I think John will be able to resolve those technical issues in a brief moment. Of course, it always sometimes goes a little bit wrong. I think it's been so intense, the racing for him, that perhaps the technology has backfired a little bit. You still with us, John? Well, your microphone's not quite coming through clear at the moment. We might give you a minute or two just to see if you can sort that out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief moment. I think John's going to see if he can resolve the challenges he's experiencing with his microphone. And then what we'll do in return, we'll come back to him. But I believe we've got another driver to interview in the intervening time. So we'll be right back. Give us about 60 seconds and we should be getting another interview underway instead. Or in fact, I do believe our other interviewee might not be available. So we are just going to take a brief moment. We will be back, ladies and gentlemen, to see if we can get you that interview with John Bailiff. Please bear with us. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, whilst John Bailiff is just resolving a couple of small technical issues, we're going to come to the other half of that epic battle for the fight for third place in the Porsche Cup class, because joining me now in the interview, technical issues not being present hopefully, is none other than Guy Edwards. Good evening to you, Guy, and well, what a battle for third between yourself and John. I mean, you must be exhausted.
Hey, Paul. Yeah, it was a good one, wasn't it? Hopefully you caught some of it. It was, yeah, definitely a really good race. I was just catching up with John very briefly while he was testing his microphone out, and we were both saying, I think for me, it's probably one of the best races I've had in the new P Cup. Definitely since we'd switched over, and yeah, it was a tight one. It was at the start. I knew John was saving behind. I couldn't keep up with the guys in front. I was kind of there, but yeah, I just didn't have the pace to stick with them. And so I kind of very quickly realised it was a race between me and John was saving. So coming up to the stops, I figured he was going to come out in front. But it was a bit closer than I thought, which then meant the second half was a really good battle.
Oh, 100%. And just winding things back, of course, to qualifying, we did see you qualify second at the end. Couldn't quite match Simon Povey, who was 3/10 faster, but you looked quite happy with your lap.
Yeah, I think Quali was all right. I'm guessing the other guys basically just didn't do a very good job on their lap compared to their pace. To be honest, I think I was probably a bit fortunate to get into second. So I think my true pace was where you saw it really. So behind Ben, behind Simon. So I think that was probably a bit more luck than anything.
All fair play. Well, luck may have had a favour in qualifying, but in the race, after losing what was second to third in the early stages, we saw you start to really dial in. And like you say, between yourself and John, it was you really leading the run in that opening stint and John having to fuel save behind. I mean, with that in mind, was there anything you could perhaps do to offset that in terms of doing some fuel saving of your own or even some tyre management of your own?
I think, yeah, tyres I was conscious of. I've never done more than half an hour in this, so I had no idea whether the tyres are going to make it or whether we need to kind of do a change, but I hadn't tested doing a change, so I figured, right, it's going to be probably safe just to stick with them. So from lap one, I was managing the tyres, just making sure, trying not to get the temps up too much and not push it, beyond what I kind of felt comfortable with. And then in terms of fuel, I think I realised too late that John was saving, I wasn't, so I knew that I couldn't get enough to be able to get another lap. And then it was just making a decision whether I kind of pressed on to try and build a gap or save a little bit to shorten the stop time. And in the end, I think I did a little bit of both, which probably wasn't the best idea. But yeah, by the point I realised John was saving, I think it was too late. So I knew what the strategy was going to be for both of us, and I was just going to see how it panned out after the stop.
Oh, indeed. And, well, it could not have been closer between the two of you. It was practically neck and neck as, well, John left the pit lane after you'd already pitted once. And at that point, we saw an absolutely furious fight between the two of you. I mean, it had the best part of about 6 different chapters in it. But just that first chapter, side by side coming down into turn number 3, and then side by side coming down to the hairpin. I mean, he squeezed you as much as possible, but you found some space.
Yeah, that was good. He basically, John had a bit of a slide coming out onto that straight. And so I had a good run, went to the outside. I knew what my plan was. I knew I was going to switch back. I just hoped that when I did switch back, there was enough there. I kind of made a bit of a space, to be honest. There's a little bit of grass touching. But John, yeah, really clean racing. He could have squeezed me more, quite comfortably within his rights and put me on the grass, but he didn't. He left me enough space just to squeeze in. And from that point on, I think that kind of set the tone that we could push each other, but it was going to be a clean race. So that meant that I think we could, really race hard, but race clean, and that made it really enjoyable.
Oh, indeed, hard and clean, like you say. Although I just also have to ask, of course, in a natural setting, which is Porsche Cup cars, that would have been absolutely brilliant by itself. But here today, of course, we had GT4s out there. What was it like enjoying that battle whilst also negotiating GT4 traffic?
A challenge, a challenge, Paul. It made it even more fun. I think, to be honest, it didn't take away. It didn't, it made it even more enjoyable because it's just another element to think about. The pace of the GT4s, it's not, the offset is there. It's mainly in certain corners that you could really see it, and then the straight. So there were some times where, it was a bit, I wouldn't say do or die, but you were kind of thinking, ooh, am I going to have enough overlap just before the apex to make it comfortably? Or do you hang back, and get a better run? And I think that's probably the same for both John and I as we were racing. Some of us got the rub, it's sometimes where we lost out. Other times it was the other guy who lost out. So I think overall it's probably even. I think John may have suffered a bit more and it ruined his first stint. I think he kind of just had a bit of bad luck, which meant he ended up a bit further behind in his first stint. So that kind of put his fuel-saving strat on the back foot a little bit. But yeah, it was really enjoyable. I think we had a very close moment in that second stint where we were coming up to the 2 leaders, the GT4s. And at that same point, John had a bit of a slide coming out onto the back straight. So I got a run on the inside. And I think there was 4 of us. And it was a bit dicey getting through there clean. But yeah, I think we did it.
Oh, indeed, plenty of dicey moments. But in the end, there could only be one driver who took that final spot on the podium, and it was yourself. But by the slenderest of margins, only half a second at the finish. I mean, that in a way must have felt as though more valuable than a win.
Yeah, it was really good. To be honest, I didn't care that we were fighting for third. I mean, third's nice, but if you're not fighting for the win, it's just nice to have a fight. It doesn't really matter if you're at the back or in the middle. So it was just really enjoyable having that fight to the end with John. And I think I made it harder than I could have done in the last 2 laps. I just, for some reason, coming onto that, that first straight, I kept losing the back end coming out onto there, which meant that John just kind of came piling in to the hairpin. So I gave him a bit more of a race than I should have done, really. But I think that's probably just, the pressure and going through the race. And by the end of it, obviously everything, arms are tired, the tyres are, getting hot, getting worn out. So everything's a bit more on the edge. So, but yeah, it was really, really good fun.
Well, great fun had by yourself. I can hear it in your voice. There's a massive cheesy grin on your face, I suspect, for really recording all the fighting. And now as we're looking ahead, of course, we've raced Porsche Cup today alongside GT4, but 2 weeks from now, we've got Season 8 of the GT4 Challenge. Can we expect you to be on the grid?
Not sure, not sure yet. There's a few other things going on, so it might be a bit of a clash. But oh yeah, it's always. But mind you, I've said that before, and then it comes to the entry time, and then I go, go on, give it a go. So undecided at the moment, but we'll see. You may well, Paul. You may well see me sitting there somewhere hovering in about 6th or 7th in the GT4 because that seems to be my place. So yeah, who knows?
Well, would love to see you on the grid, Guy, but if you can't because of personal circumstances, we also understand and we appreciate every time we do get to see you on the grid. As I do get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Just you guys, and obviously this is a great event and a bit of a nice surprise to have a special event organised by everyone, letting us just all join in. So yeah, just a big, just really big thanks for everyone at SRM and Andy. And I know there's a bit more of a team behind it now, sorting everything out. So I think everyone racing really appreciates it. So just a big thanks to them.
Well, we need to give a big thanks to yourself, Guy, because you put on plenty of entertainment today, no doubt about it, but also for joining me in the interview room. And well, it's been an absolute blast. And when we see you on the grid in a couple of weeks' time, or perhaps later this year, well, either way, we look forward to when we do see you on the grid again. But until then, have a great rest of your evening and a great few months ahead.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. Take care. Cheers.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Guy Edwards, our third place finisher today, and he just loved the battling with John Bailiff. And to be fair, as he said there, it didn't matter where they were fighting for. If it wasn't for the win, he just wanted to enjoy the battle, and he loved it to bits. And talking about the fact, it really came down to the smallest of margins between them. And one of the big quotients was the tyre degradation and the slipperiness of those rear tyres towards the end when tyre wear built up. Both drivers there struggling for traction, and well, he mentioned that he was making it harder for himself than he needed to by breaking traction at certain corners going onto longer straights. But in the end, only one driver could do it, and it was Guy Edwards who was able to take that win. And if we don't get to see him on the GT4 grid in a few weeks' time, I'll tell you one thing, we do get to see him back on the grid again. It doesn't matter where he's fighting for, he'll give it his all, because he's definitely done that today, has the privateer. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are going to be very shortly hearing from John Bailiff. He is now, I think, all resolved. And, well, we'll be back very shortly to hear from the other man on the other side of that brilliant battle. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is attempt number 2 of us trying to speak to John Bailiff, and hopefully this time we'll be able to hear him. He joins me again in the interview. John, do we have you now?
Hopefully this is working this time.
It is indeed. We've got you. That's absolutely brilliant. Congratulations on resolving the technical issues, and congratulations on probably one of the most epic battles we have seen in recent history here at SRM. For third place, didn't quite get it, but you look like you absolutely enjoyed it.
I think you can't really care about the end result when you've had a race like that, when it's so hard but so clean and fair. And I think we pushed each other as hard as we could, and yeah, it just didn't quite work out for me today, but it was so much fun.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the fun out there are really the big part of it. That's what the whole event was about. But dialing it all the way back to begin with. Now, I am aware that you've been racing quite a bit in the Porsche Cup car as of recently, particularly the iRace officials. Is this a car that's naturally drawn you, or is it a car that you've only recently taken interest in?
Yeah, I've been racing the Porsche Cup for probably 2.5, 3 years now. So I've done a lot with the previous gen, and then obviously this one I've done the officials in another league, so I've driven it quite a lot. So I'm a lot more comfortable in this than I am in the GT4.
Oh, fair play. Well, that comfort definitely showed, to be fair, although you're saying that from a position of being, of course, our reigning AM champion in the GT4. So whatever you seem to touch, you have a bit of a golden touch to the car. 4th place in qualifying, a very good effort, to be fair. Were you happy with that, or did you think there was more out there?
There's definitely more out there. I think I was 2 and a bit tenths up, and then I sort of made a few mistakes. And then I think I sort of lost it and then found a little bit more. So it's probably another 2.5 tenths if I'd have put it together, but didn't do it, so it doesn't matter.
Well, you may not have quite put it together, but then in the race itself, you're able to put things together. But as Guy Edwards mentioned only moments ago, the opening stint of the race was really you following the leader of that battle, and by the looks of things, fuel saving every step of the way. Although I can imagine the temptation was probably there to try and overtake him, but you went an extra lap as a result.
I think if I'd not have ended up sort of losing out, I think I made a bit of a mistake in sunset on one of the laps. I think I'd lifted quite early and then I broke a bit too late and lost the back end slightly, and then that just put me out of sync with the traffic. So at that point, I had to start pushing. I think if I'd have been able to stick sort of within sort of 6, 7 tenths, I'd have probably got an extra lap on top of that.
Oh, I see. Well, on top of that, I mean, you would have been Mr. Fuel Saving all the way through to go one lap, let alone two at such a long circuit. But by saving that extra lap, we then got to see you come out the pit lane practically side by side with Guy Edwards. And after that, pandemonium ensued for the remaining, what was 14 laps of the race. I mean, you probably didn't know when it was going to end.
I know, but it's a lot of fun. I think that the first sort of lap out of the pits, I don't know if my tyres had cooled down a little bit. It wasn't quite gripping as I hoped. And then, obviously, I made a slight mistake and I thought I hadn't quite left a car's gap. But all of a sudden, Guy had found himself there, so I thought, well, there's no point killing us both into the hairpin. So I gave him some room and thought, we'll see what happens after this.
Oh, fair play. And constantly back and forth, although there was one very scary moment from your perspective, which was coming out of sunset, the leader of the GT4 class right in front, and, well, understanding, Guy went one way around Stuart Reynolds, you went the other way to suddenly find a tyre barrier and a Mercedes.
Yeah, well, I thought just following Guy wasn't going to get me anything, so I thought I'll try around the outside, hope that there was some space. It looked like there was going to be some space, then all of a sudden the space disappeared, so I sort of ended up getting on the brakes slightly and clouted the barrier, but did a little bit of damage, but I don't think it hurt too much. But that kind of, I think that point was the sort of the nail in the coffin for going for the podium.
Oh, I see. A bit unfortunate there with regards to that really blunt in the end, but still, these things happen when it's so intense. And a fourth place in the end, but to be fair, never more than half a second away come the finish line. I mean, you've had a lot of fun out there today, and that's what it's all about. Did you surpass your expectations, perhaps, for this event?
Oh, absolutely. When I sort of turned on the PC, I wasn't necessarily feeling. I thought, well, I'll come along, see how it goes. And then that race has just been amazing. So really glad that I came along and gave it a go.
Oh, fantastic. And well, of course, I know we talked about this earlier on this year in January with regards to could we expect you to be back for Season 8 of the GT4 Challenge. Have you had any more thoughts about that?
I'm still looking at it. I think, like I said, I'm a lot more comfortable in cars like this than the GT4, so I think I need to do some more laps in some of the other cars and see if one of them gels. Because I feel like although I managed to get some results out of the BMW, it wasn't necessarily a car that I was particularly good at.
All fair play. Well, no pressure on you, John. If we do see you on the grid, we'd love to see you. If not, I'm sure we'll see you achieve even more in a car that definitely fits you as time goes on. But just so I get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to?
Just thank you to you guys for putting this on. It's a really good event, especially sort of in between the seasons. So it's good to get back out on track. Amazing race. So again, thanks to Guy. And just thanks for what you've done.
Well, John, likewise, we need to give a big thank you, not just to join us in the interview this evening, we really do appreciate it, but also for the brilliant spectacle you've put on today. We've loved seeing you out there, and I'm sure we'll get to see you out on circuit in one of our events in the near future. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening and a great year ahead.
Thank you.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from John Bailiff. It's great we've been able to hear from him despite the technical hiccup earlier on. But to be fair, he was worth waiting for. And, well, he's always worth waiting for, to be fair. He has put on an incredible performance today. And we're enjoying that battle with Guy Edwards. And mentioning there, he could have perhaps gone 2 laps extra if it were not for a slight slide and a mistake in the late stage of that opening stint. That would have been incredible. If he had gone 17 laps on that singular tank compared to the rest of the Porsche Cup class, I think everyone would have been raising an eyebrow exactly what he's able to do where others are not. But it definitely showed you how comfortable he was in the machine and why he's been absolutely loving this Porsche Cup car that he's getting to grips with. And of course, in that battle, when in it was all going to come down to fine margins, but it was a very fine one in the end, where the two came up behind the leading GT4s, and well, unfortunately, the space running out, making haste to the barrier, and we'll mention that damage was really the nail in the coffin and cost him a little bit of pace, and that pace difference really not seeing him being able to come back. But to be fair, he's had a lot of fun as John Bailiff, and we look forward to next time we get to see him on circuit, because I'm sure he'll have even more fun then. Well, ladies and gents, we have even more interviews to come, and we will be back very shortly for what might be one of our last interviews of the day, because we're heading to the GT4 class. But who are we headed to? Let's find out. And so, ladies and gents, we now come to the GT4 class, and joining me in the interview room is none other than Fury Simsports' Matthias Tem. Good evening to you, Matthias, and well, what a race for yourself today. You may have started in 6th place, but by the end of it, you finished 3rd in class, and well, it was a tough one, but you made it through.
Well, good evening. Yeah, that was a tough battle. It, it was a little frustrating in the first stint. We were held up by one of the satellite cars a little bit. So there was a gap to close. It was about 5 seconds. So I took a gamble. We tested this before the race as well in the 5 laps of practice that we did. But we knew that we could like switch like the left-hand side tires and gain a slight advantage with it. It cost you a little bit on the first lap out of the box, but it paid off. I had a slight tire advantage, pushed really hard, and I took Thomas there on lap 22 of the race, and 2 laps after I got into P3. It was a good battle.
Oh, 100%. It was a superb battle. And as you mentioned there, a degree of frustration in the early stages being held up a bit by the satellite racing cars. And, well, I think your day today was a destiny that was joined with satellite racing machines because you had to fight your way past them in the second stint. What changed between the first stint and the second stint?
It was hard to judge how much fuel to take. I think they slightly underfueled. And I saved a bit of fuel in the first stint, so I was comfortable on fuel. So I could push hard, and they were just like saving fuel a little bit. And yeah, the tires, they helped a lot, especially in the last sector, turns 15, 16. It's very... Well, you're on ice basically there, especially after a stint on the tires. So having the left-hand side tires changed, it helps a bit there.
Oh, well, fair. The tyres definitely helping you out. Plus, also, as you mentioned there, perhaps not having to save anywhere near as much fuel and being able to go full attack. And, well, in the battle of the V8, we definitely saw your Mercedes seem to be a very grounded car. But those 4 Mustangs not slow in the straights.
Now they're quick on the straights, especially on the back straight. I was struggling to keep up with them, and I had to do it in the braking zones to get the moves done. Especially the last move on Nils, it was very sketchy. He was deep on the brakes as well. We were close together and managed to hold it around the outside, but I was praying for him to stop the car.
Oh, fair play. Well, trying to get it done, you did manage to, and to be fair, respectful racing between the two of you, even if you were trying to be the latest of the late breakers between one another. And in the end, it does mean it's been a double podium for yourself, and also, of course, your teammate Stuart Reynolds. I mean, for Fury Simsport, the future's only looking better and better for 2026.
It's a good start of 2026, and yeah, Stuart recently won the championship in the SRM GT4 challenge as well. It's his first outing back with SRM since he won the championship, and still in good form. We're preparing for the season ahead, and yeah, just keep chipping away.
Oh, indeed, that's all you can do is keep on chipping away, and we won't keep you too much longer. First, I've got to ask you is, obviously, you're on the grid for Season 7. Can we expect you back for Season 8 in a few weeks' time?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. I love a categorical answer to hear. Absolutely. That's great. And well, we're going to be talking a bit more about the Season 8 schedule later on this broadcast. But lastly, as always, before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Of course. Well, our team, Fury Simsport, and their partners, Abruzzi, racewear and Paddock Motorsports. And yeah, thank you to the organizers, to SRM, to you for putting up this event and for setting it up. And it's great to have an event like this between the seasons. There's no stakes really, so it's just all good fun, and you notice that with the driving as well. It's everyone's trying to have a bit of fun, but also do it at the limit as well. Typical SRM style.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that is the SRM spirit, absolutely embodied by what you're saying there. And we absolutely love to see you on the grid. And we look forward to seeing you on the grid for the next season, the GT4 Challenge, in only a couple of weeks' time. Matthias, it's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations on your trip to the podium in the GT4s. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Matthias Tem, the Dutch Fury Sim Sport driver today, who really enjoyed himself out there, albeit a degree of frustration, but that's the way it goes when you're battling with drivers who are very equal, and finding the satellite racing pair of none other than Niels Kor and also Thomas Fischer proving to be obstinate. However, suspect they might have underfueled, and also Tyler was starting to bite towards the end of the race. He was able to make his way past them, but he had to be daring to do so, and we got to see plenty of that battling in the late stage between them. But in finishing third, I'm very happy today, and things are looking good for Fury Sim Sport, and well, for Matthias Tem, when we see him back on the grid in Season 8 of the GT4 Challenge, I suspect he's going to want to go even higher than he did last season, and he'll be very eager to try and become a champion. But there's a long way and wait for that, and right now he's been enjoying fun today, and he really has highlighted the fact that in this special event, the aim of the game was to have good battling out there. He's definitely done that, and we've seen so much more from him, and I suspect we're even going to see more from him as the year goes on. But ladies and gentlemen, great news, we have one more interview to bring you. We're going to get a double in the GT4 class like we have in the Porsche Cup class. We'll be only about 10 seconds, and we will be back for our final interview of the evening. And so for our final interview, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now in the interview room is none other than Daniel Osler from Fury Sim Sport. Good evening to you, Daniel. And well, what a day for yourself. 5th place in qualifying, 7th in the race. It didn't quite work out perfectly in the race, but to be fair, you found yourself in the thick of the fighting.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity and the commentary. It's amazing to see. I've watched a few before, so it was lovely to be a part of it. Yeah, it didn't go as planned to start. I think I had a bit more pace than quali shown. I mean, I was really looking to be in the thick of the fight, up at the top, but it's not how it panned out. So for race start, we were just kind of settling in as you should, and yeah, we, as Matthias said as well, we kind of were a little bit frustrated with feeling like we were a little bit held up. I mean, I'm sure it was just fuel saving, but mid-corner, I feel like he overslowed a little bit too much on some occasions. And then, yeah, with the incident, I kind of like half moved to the inside to see if I could force a mistake, not really intending to go down the inside. But yeah, he kind of slowed down a little bit too much, went a little bit wide, and then I thought, well, I've got nowhere to go other than the back of him or to the inside, and then yeah, spam myself out. But it was okay. Definitely learned a lot, and yeah, I'm looking forward to sign-ups to see what we can do in this coming season with Fury.
Oh, fantastic. And well, it was unfortunate the contact that we did see you have with, I think it was Thomas Fischer at Tower Bend. But like you say, a bit of a misunderstanding in terms of how deep he'd gone versus the space on the inside and the fact you hadn't committed to a move necessarily, and then the door was open a try. But still, we got to see you stay in the race and in the end keep on pushing onwards. And I do have to ask, after recovering the car, obviously the tyres in these cars can be quite sensitive. What was it like to drive? How do you get the car back to its optimum, if you will?
Yeah, so after the spin, obviously tires were a little bit too warm, and it was just a case of managing myself because I was in a little bit of a little bit of a hole at that point where I was just trying to crawl out of. So yeah, we're just taking it easy, seeing if I could catch up to the back of the pack. That was in front. Unfortunately, Daniel Perry, he disconnected mid-race, which gave me a position, but it's awful to see it. He was in a good position, kind of looking forward as well. So unfortunate for him. But yeah, same as Matthias, I took tyres on the left side in the pit stop. It seemed to work quite nice. Yeah, the first lap wasn't ideal, but the pace difference I had near the end of the race was good. Managed to make a position up at the end, which was nice. But yeah, it's one of those that I just needed more time to kind of learn the track, learn the setup in a sense. But hey-oh, we go again another time.
Oh, 100%. And that naturally, of course, brings on to what you mentioned earlier. Looking forward to Season 8. I mean, we're going to get to see you out there. And I do have to ask, is there a lot of testing to go then to see whether the Porsche Cayman's the right car for you, or are you set on that already?
I feel like I should do some testing in the other cars. I mean, the Mercedes looks like a very good package, especially on the fixed setup. But yeah, I love the Porsche. I haven't been racing GT4 too long. It's only been a couple of months, really. But it's just been the one I've gravitated to. But yeah, it's just trying to figure out the car a little bit better, kind of gain those last few temps that I'm missing. And yeah, I'm sure just with a little bit more fortune and maybe improving my racecraft a little bit, we can do well.
Oh, no doubt. I suspect with that time and with a bit of practice and a bit more learning of the car, we'll get to see you put on a brilliant set of performances in the upcoming season. But just as I do get ready to let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
I mean, like we said before, Fury Sim Sport, we kind of came in, didn't do too much testing, but we gave it a good go. We had 2 cars on the podium. We had 4 cars in the top 8 for quali, so we did really well there. Just wish it could have panned out a little bit better for some of us. And I think there was a Scarlett in the broadcast I was watching. So shout out to her, supporting me along. But yeah, that was good.
Oh, definitely. We did have Scarlett tuning in as well, giving you a shout out in the chat. And well, great to see some fans tuning in for you. But Daniel, we'll leave it there for now. Congratulations, Stay, on a solid recovery. Even if it wasn't the way you wanted it to go, it's good to see you out there giving it your all. And we look forward to seeing you in Season 8 for the GT4 Challenge in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Amazing. Thanks, Paul. Take care.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was our final interview. That was with Daniel Osler there. And understandably, a bit frustrated after what happened at the start. And what he's mentioning too there, if you're wondering why there's a little bit of perhaps frustration from the Fury Sim Sport drivers in relation to, I do believe they are referring to the satellite racing machine of Thomas Fisher. And by the way, we're not saying that Fisher's done anything at this point, just explaining some context. The thought that he might have been overslowing at Apex is to save some fuel, but also wondering because there were satellite racing cars ahead, whether it might have been a bit excessive to buy time for other cars. But obviously, people cool down in the heat of the moment. Drivers all feel this way, and indeed, anybody who's on the grid will feel that way at a certain moment. But in the end, it did go a bit wrong for Daniel Osler coming through Tower Bend, where we did see that instant. There's multiple ways you could have looked at it, and a bit of a misinterpretation of different positions of cars there between Osler and also Thomas Fisher, and it did see Daniel Osler go around. But still, he didn't give up. He got the car pointed back in the right direction and carried on, which is what we love to see, and come at the end of it all. Finished in 7th, making up a place or 2, but 9, it wasn't quite the representation of what he wanted it to be today. But I suspect when we see him on the grid for the GT4 Challenge in a couple of weeks' time, he'll be giving it his all, and he's going to be moving upwards rather than feeling downwards. And great to catch up with him, and indeed look forward to seeing him on the grid in the near future. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that concludes all of our interviews for today. And as Osler makes his way onto the pit lane, out of the pit lane there in our replay footage, well, we need to make our way out of all of our replay footage and indeed take a look at who we gave an interview to tonight. 'Cause it's always good to give you a recap. And without further ado, here we go. Because as we can see, we started off by speaking to two of our drivers in the Porsche Cup class. We spoke to both Guy Edwards, the privateer there, and your third place finisher in the end on the podium of Porsche Cup. And then we did hear from John Bailiff, his main rival, that titanic battle between the two of them from start to finish. And well, in the end, it went the way of Edwards, but it could have gone either way, with Bailiff just missing out. Behind the winner of Bennett Racing driver, we then heard from two GT4 class drivers, both of them from Fury Simsport. Matthias Tem, your podium finisher, and then a little bit not quite on the podium, but definitely giving his all today, Daniel Osler there as well. 7th place finisher, but both of them enjoying themselves and having a happy day for the most part at the office, and we look forward to plenty more from them all in the near future. Thank you to all four of them for their brilliant performances, and a huge thank you to them for their time in the interview room. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, if you've enjoyed this special event, do let us know. And well, if you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid, whether it be for our ongoing series, alternatively, one-off events here at Sim Racing Magazine, we've got plenty planned for 2026 and onwards. Well, the one way to do so, get on the grid by joining our official Discord. Invite link available there, and if you do, you'll be part of the beating heart of the community, and we'd be more than happy to have you here. We'd also like to take a big moment to say a thank you to our sponsor, our lead sponsor for this one-off event, and that is none other than Oris Digital. Now, small teams can make a huge impact in the digital marketing and e-commerce space, and Oris Digital knows that best. With 20 years of collective experience in growing businesses through online marketing channels via the provision of services including affiliate management, Amazon marketing, and digital strategy, Oris Digital delivers tangible results to its clients. And if you'd like to know about how Oris Digital can help grow your business, be sure to head to their website today at www.oris.digital. And thank you to Oris Digital for being our title sponsor for this event and for our ongoing series. We'd also like to give a thank you to our series partners, who do include Oburis Watch. And one of our drivers, Rob Sharp, runs Oburis Watch, which designs and markets watch faces for smartwatches running Google's Wear OS. This SRM-themed watch face, which you do see on screen, is available on the Google Play Store just by searching for GT4C. It features a pit board that includes your race position, which improves as you near your step target for the day, a racetrack with selectable colours for each sector, and the trademark SRM branding, along with other useful information such as heart rate, so you can manage your excitement level in the next SRM race. And if you'd like to know more about Ouroboros' watch faces for smartwatches, why not head to their website at www.ouroboros.com. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our other series partner, and that is none other than Rome Worthy. Now, buying the perfect caravan, motorhome, or campervan can be an activity which leaves you going around in circles, but not with Rome Worthy. For built by technology Built by technology people who love the road, Rome Worthy provides you with the tools you need to put you in the fast lane to buying the caravan, motorhome, or campervan which meets your requirements via a website that is packed with real stock and no pushy sales personnel. And if you'd like to know more and be in pole position to get the caravan, motorhome, or campervan of your dreams, then why not head to www.romeworthy.co.uk today. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, the question is, what lies ahead? Well, we've alluded to it multiple times. It is none other than Season 8 of the GT4 Challenge, and it will be getting underway on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 2026. That's right, we've not got long left, ladies and gentlemen. The wait is almost over before we go GT4 racing in its purest form once again. And, well, in terms of when the sign-ups open, we say here they'll be the sign-ups will be coming soon, but I can tell you, as I double-check here in the official Discord as well, the number one source for all this information, if you do want to know more about the GT4 Challenge Season 8, the number one source says that it will be tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the evening that we'll be seeing sign-ups open up for our drivers who have previously raced in the series. But for those who might be sat there right now, new to the grid, public entries will be opening on none other than Saturday, the 21st of February, 7 o'clock in the evening then. So you definitely do want to make sure you get signed up in the near future, because those places will go quick on the grid. And I'll tell you one thing, you'll be set for an absolutely incredible season of racing action. And in terms of the circuits we plan to visit from the Tuesday, the 3rd of March onwards, well, here is our calendar. And we can see we'll be kicking things off in Italy at one of the home circuits of Ferrari at the Autodromo International Enzo Dino Ferrari, more colloquially known as Imola. Then we go to Long Beach for round number 2. Every 2 weeks we race, and then on round number 3, we will have a public vote as to which circuit we'll be going racing at, and it will be the same for rounds 5 and also 7. So not all the schedule has been finalised yet. We pick it here in the administration group, and we also do open up the door to a select number of circuits which can be voted from. But those that are confirmed as well. Bathurst, we do head to Mount Panorama for round number 4 to complete the first half of the season. On round number 6, we head to the Fast and Furious, arguably the fastest circuit in the United Kingdom, Thruxton. We've not raced there yet, and also we'll see the season out at Road America on the 9th of June, but definitely a season to be on the grid for because it's an absolutely brilliant mix of circuits, bringing a little bit of everything together for our GT4 machines, and we'll be very happy to have you. So all that and more, all you need to do is join the SRM official Discord and make sure you get your sign up in when it's open and get yourself on the grid. And that, of course, all begins on Tuesday, the 3rd of March, 2026 for Season 8 of the GT4 Challenge. But with that, that concludes our broadcast. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I do hope you've enjoyed the 180 kilometres of Sebring as much as we've absolutely loved bringing it to you. So that's all we've got time for here today from Sim Racing Magazine, and indeed, it's been none other than myself, Paul Walsh, in the commentary booth, and you've been tuning to a Paul Walsh production. But until next time, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.